We'll start as usual with the playing of our national anthem, and I'll ask you to stand if you're able and sing if you'd like. Thank you. You may be seated. The municipality of Whitestone recognizes all of Canada resides on traditional, unceded, and/or treaty lands of the Indigenous people of Turtle Island. We recognize our municipality on the Robinson-Huron Treaty Territory is home to many past, present, and future Indigenous families. This acknowledgement of the land is a declaration of our commitment and collective responsibility to reconcile the past and to honor and value the culture, history, and relationships we have with one another. Before we get into the agenda itself, we have a procedural motion. I'll read it to you and ask for a mover and seconder. Whereas the municipality of Whitestone procedural bylaw 40-2012 as amended provides for the following. The agenda will be available to the public, including staff generated reports, applications, and/or other imperative information regarding topics to be discussed during the scheduled council meeting at any time after 12 noon, 2 business days preceding the meeting. And whereas the agenda package for the July 4th, 2023 council meeting was posted on the municipal website on Thursday, June 29th, 2023 at approximately 4 p.m. And whereas the normal municipal website link did not provide access to the website from approximately early evening, Friday, June the 30th to early morning, July 3rd, 2023, due to technical issues with the website provider. And whereas an alternative link was posted on the municipal Facebook page on Saturday, July 2nd, 2023, is that July 1st? Saturday, July 1st, I think. And whereas the municipality of Whitestone procedural bylaw 40-2012 as amended provides for the following. Item 21.1, a procedure required by this bylaw may be suspended with consent of a majority of the members present. Now therefore be it resolved that section 11.5 of the municipality of Whitestone procedural bylaw 40-2012 as amended be suspended for the purpose of proceeding with the July 4th, 2023 regularly scheduled council meeting. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Lamb, seconded by Councillor Bray. Any discussion?
I'll go, if I could through you, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I was the one that had brought up the issue with the notice to the CAO about ensuring that we gave a proper protocol and not wanting to be under the possibility of having an ombudsman find us not in compliance of our procedural bylaw. And the only thing I'd like to say, I know there's lots of people in the audience today, which is great. I know they're taking some time off of their vacations or their work, which is great. But at the same time, I think we just have to be really careful when we're doing these suspensions of the procedural bylaw. Seems like we've been doing them quite a bit lately. And if we're in the midst of rewriting a procedural bylaw, I'm not really sure why we'd need to rewrite a procedural bylaw if we just keep suspending it all the time. The rules are in place to actually be followed, instead of saying, we know we're breaking the rules, so let's just suspend them and carry on with their heads down. So as a result of that, I would not be in favor of continuing today, because I don't think you can really go back and say, because we did something wrong 3 days ago, we're going to ignore that and allow the meeting to happen now after there could be 30 more people that want to be here that didn't have access to that meeting. So anyways, those are my thoughts, but I did bring it up as I felt it was important that we should be reminded of that. So thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Councilor Lamb?
I can't help but respond. It would be ridiculous to not. It would be ridiculous not to approve this motion. Everyone would have to go home. We'd have to reconvene it. Business wouldn't get done at the municipality. It's a small glitch because the computer or the network went down. And so I'm fully supportive of this. And if we keep wanting ombudsman reports and we keep wanting to make little procedural sort of finagling to not get to doing our business, this is the way to do it. So I strongly encourage my other councillor members to vote for this so we can have a meeting versus having all these people and those online go home. So that's my feeling on it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? I'll call the question then. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate. Contrary minded? Okay, the motion is carried. I'm sorry? Right, okay. So now I would ask if there's any member of council has a pecuniary interest to disclose in today's proceedings. All right, let the record show there was none declared. Can I get a motion then to approve the agenda as presented for this meeting? Councillor Bray moves, Councillor Wood seconds. Any discussion? Those in favor, please indicate. Thank you, that's carried. Next item on this afternoon's agenda is a presentation by Kevin Williamson, who is the president of the Magnatowan Pioneers Association, which represents ratepayers on Bolger, Kashagaba, and Whites Lakes. And Calvin's going to talk to us about boat storage on the municipal shore road allowance. Calvin, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. So be here, it's the first time here at the Whitestone Council.
Speaking to Mike.
I think you will have to turn on the mic, Mr. Williamson, and I have shared my screen with you so you can set up we'll just take a minute here and you can set up your presentation, but for people to hear you, you'll need to speak into the mic.
Sounds good. All right. So I will share my presentation so we can get started. Let me know if they can hear me online.
I think the mic's.
I don't think the
Yep.
mic's on.
Councillor Woods, could you check his mic for him? You're closest. We are getting your presentation here.
Oh, I pushed it. Got it.
Well, we've
Thank you.
never had someone on the mic and on their Zoom at the same time, so
Yeah.
we'll test it out. I've got someone here that's letting me know about sound and volume, so
Okay.
maybe just get started and we'll get some feedback on whether we can hear you or not.
Okay, first of all, I hope we can see the presentation is up online.
And I'd like to first say a thank you to the Whitestone mayor and councilors for having a delegation here today. We have about 20 families represented of Magneto Pioneer Association here today. And I'll try to keep this to the point. We provided information to the council prior to this, but I will go through the highlights and hopefully we can share some information here that's valuable. So first of all, the Magneto Pioneer Association would like to continue working in harmony with the municipality, and it is our intention to be helpful in establishing a suitable solution for the Bolger shoreline parking. As I said, information was provided by the MPA letter dated June 20th, which was received various comments from Bolger ratepayers, Kashi, Gaba, Portage Bay, and Whites in regards to the shoreline resolution dated June the 6th. In this letter, there was some of the, I've highlighted some of the points. I won't go through them all in detail, but they are basically this Bolger community. And when I say Bolger, it's Kashi, Gaba, Bolger Lake, Portage Bay, and Whites Lake. Is mainly made up of elderly cottagers, many in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, and like to keep that in mind. The Bolger community has, for many decades, put in best practice solutions, and we have been successful in not having any concerns or liabilities. It's a community that has worked well together, and we've come up with best practices that are respected by all. I wanted to speak a little bit about liability exposure. When a municipality puts in place any kind of legislation or regulations, there's a chance that additional liability is taken on. For example, if one of our elderly cottagers that chose to have a shore dock with a small hand winch to help them pull the boat up, that option is taken away from them. Now we have a situation where we've got an elderly person trying to pull up a 14 or 16-foot aluminum boat onto the shoreline, and a couple of things really could happen. A, they could have a heart attack in a very isolated location, slip into the lake, break a hip. There's a number of accidents that could happen, and which has led them to say, you know, for safety reasons, a shore docker is suitable for me. And really, with this resolution, it really is just the shore docker situation that is concerning for the membership. One of the other reasons we talked about is the boats that are along the shoreline, and it's an unfriendly shoreline. The shoreline is not sandy, it is a rock face, some places 1 foot, other places 2 or 3 feet. But people are spread out so that they can be able to pull their boat up without affecting others. But some of the people that in the past haven't chosen to do that, and they didn't get up to the cottage for 2, 3, 4 weeks. They come, there's been heavy rains in July or a thunderstorm. The boat is filled up with water and it's further slid into the lake, and that's where we got into trouble with motors going in the water, gas, oil. So there's an environmentally sanctity consideration here that these shore dockers do provide a bit of protection for. There is a feeling that you know, this kind of resolution could ultimately affect the resale value of property because it's so important. This is a water access only property for all of our cottages, bar one. So all of them have to have the ability to be able to have a water access only park and get underway. There's no entitled ownership issues with the boat park at the landing. It's been in operations for many decades, and it's been part of the cooperative community. And there's never been a fight over that's my space, your space. It's just worked out quite well. Like I said, there's little sand on the shoreline. These assisted devices, the shore docker, it's basically two 2x6s, 14 to 16 feet long, with either rollerblade type wheels or a larger roller that goes along these 2x6s. And at the end of it, there's a hand crank which allows the person to pull their boat up out of the water. 99.9% of the property owners at Bolger have water access only. I've mentioned that. All of which are ratepayers. Some of the membership have distances 5 kilometers return, 10 kilometers return trip, 21 kilometers return trip is the longest. That's a significant distance to travel to your cottage by water. So the choice of boat that's made for the cottagers is their decision, and they are keeping that decision for their safety and the use of their the cottage and the number of people they're bringing in, supplies for building material, that sort of thing. So that trip is pretty long, 21 kilometers, typically 12 kilometers. So there are unique needs at the Bolger Lakes and the residents of Bolger. And there are no other municipalities or lakes in municipality of Whitestone that has no road access. Now, I know Wawashkesh has water access only, but there are municipality roads that go to that. We look after 9 kilometers of a very difficult trail. We try to maintain that as best we can. Fortunately, Whitestone has been able to provide us with some funding to help with the maintenance of the road. But that's a unique difference with the cottages of the Bolger area. Now, back when in 2016, when Whitestone and the MPA entered into an agreement for managing the landing. And I have to say, it's from what I've been the last 5 years as presidents, it's worked very well, and for many years before that. And we look after the docks. In the last 3 years, we put in new docks at the landing, providing more safety. That's worked out well. There's no garbage at the landing. We did get rid of a bunch of derelict boats. Now there's few, if any, that are remaining along the shoreline. There is only one private dock at the landing, and this dock is there because it's an elderly couple that have a trouble getting in and out of a boat, not to mention one that's on the shoreline. So that's there. I believe we can abide by that part of the resolution. And there's other options now that are available, you know, for the parking of that boat. When it comes to trailers, that part of the resolution isn't an issue for us. We've removed all our trailers. The big reason there are no trailers is it's a one-shot deal. You're lucky if you can get your boat into the landing over that 9 kilometers of road, Cambrian Shield rock, without breaking a transom or something on your trailer. So typically the boat goes in for these cottages and it stays. And we've, in the last 2 years, said all trailers had to leave. And that was in conjunction with working with the MECP conservation area. So when it comes to the average size of boats, it's 16-foot aluminum with maybe a 20 horse, just to give you the perspective of the boats that we're talking along that shoreline. Other considerations, you know, this landing has been in existence since the 60s and even before, providing property access without dispute for over 60 years. Access to lake vehicle parking, boat launching, boat parking. There's been no complaints for 60 years until last year. The size of the lake to keep in mind is the Bolger-Cache Lake system is actually the second largest in the municipality of Whitestone. And I mentioned the boating commuting is upwards to 21 kilometers. Just as background information, the total value of the properties in the Bolger Lake system is $14 million. There's 17 vacant lots, which possibly could get built on over the next 5 to 10 years. Another point is is with no real control over the severance of the number of properties that have been sold and have managed to get along in a congenial manner with the extra boats. Now with the marina that's there now, that shoreline is naturally going to have less of an impact, less of a requirement for parking possibly. And we can watch how that plays out. Basically, the taxes from the community equal about $91,000 a year. There's some implications, legislation and agreements that need to be considered. Implications of a historical use of access for boat launching and boat parking. Understanding the legislation signed in 2002 when the province between the province and the municipality of Whitestone, there's a contractual agreement between the MPA and Whitestone. And there's also the municipality of Whitestone's official plan. We'd like to consider all possibilities to find a solution and work with the councillors. We really want to make things happen. All of these points I've said above all can be answered from our cottage point of view as remain status quo. But there are other options that we can explore. We want to be able to ensure a sustainable future. The MPA would like to help in asking that a solution be developed through dialogue and review of best practices. We are confident that with the below elements in mind, an agreement can be achieved. A solution that includes options for maintaining safety, as I mentioned earlier. This is an older community. A solution that minimizes the risk to the municipality. A solution that considers our grandchildren and ensuring sustainability for future generations. A solution that provides for ratepayers independent access of their properties, which includes water access in a safe and efficient manner. So what are our next steps? And I think I'm trying to stay within the 10 minutes here. We'd like to return to the March 7th council direction, and that is to work with the MPA to allow for further discussions with the MPA. The MPA would like to request a waiver for the August 1st timeline. And let's create a working group, or a precedence has already been set, I suppose, with the task force that Wawashkesh has with the municipality. Perhaps that is the way to go. Maybe we don't have enough issues to resolve it at this point. Maybe there is a solution at hand that can be put in place. And set a timeline that is mutually agreeable upon recommendations, and bring this back to council from the task force. So I do want to thank all of the cottagers here. I'm surprised at the amount of support we have attending today on a work day. Thank you all for coming. I'm representing the MPA and the cottagers' voice, and we'd like to really work this out without creating more diversity. Let's ratchet things down in the landing area. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to respond.
Okay, thank you, Calvin.
Thank you, Your Worship.
I'll open the floor up to questions from members of council. If any of you have questions or comments, preferably questions. Councillor Lamb?
Yes, I mean, the purpose of the delegation is to listen and for council to ask questions of the presenter.
Get the microphone called.
If we want to open it up afterwards, comments and discussion and all that, I guess that's the will of council, but this isn't. the time.
Can you speak into the mic?
Yeah. This
Sorry.
isn't the necessarily the time to do that. But Calvin, when you say ratchet down, you said diversity, I think you meant animosity. Am I right or wrong?
I don't want to
Your last comment.
let me
You
put
said
it this way.
ratchet down the diversity.
Last year, you saw all of the reaction to the resolution or the rezoning issue. I'm trying to separate that because last year,
Oh, yeah,
we
this
respected-
isn't about that.
it's not about that. We respected the decision. But nevertheless, there's still some diversity and I want to see that gone for all of our sakes.
Sure.
And
So-
then benefits will be for everybody.
Okay, so I was told, I think it was told or saw some communications that were kind of threatening legal action against the municipality over prescriptive rights and a bunch of other things. What's the MPA's position on that with respect to legal action against the municipality?
That is not the direction we are taking now. As I've clearly indicated, what our next steps we would like to see.
I
taken.
realize, but you're saying that's not the direction you're going now. That's not a direction you're going to go?
I don't think we need to go that route. And I don't even want to talk about it at this point because it's not going to be helpful.
That's my question. If you don't want to answer it, then that's fine. Thank you.
I mean, we can discuss those elements. I don't want it to be out there like it's not been answered. Prescriptive rights have been around in Ontario at municipalities for a long time. There's a rule, 10 years, that if a certain allowance has been happening for 10 years in a peaceful and common way, then there are some jurisprudence that allows for that to continue. Like I said, we don't have to go down those kinds of arguments. I don't want to. I think we can resolve this with a lot easier solution here. I hope that gives a bit more like. But I have the support 100% of the board, if you're asking, that this is the offer, this is the way we would see a resolution found is to work with council and a story.
Okay, thanks. Are there other questions from council? Councillor Woods, did you know? Were you, Councillor Nash?
Hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yep.
All right. First off, Calvin, thank you for putting this together. I know we spoke on the phone. I hope that's okay to say. And I know it's a hard situation that everybody feels that they're put in, right? And I appreciate the time you've taken and the presentation that you've done outlining what you feel the concerns are. And what you'd like to see us maybe rethink or relook at. So I appreciate that. Yeah, that's all. So thank you.
I didn't expect there to be any massive decisions here today, but with August 1st looming, it would be nice to be able to rest our elderly owners here that there's not an action going to be taken against them that it's going to cause a problem.
Councillor Lamb?
With your permission, I will make a couple comments. Is that okay? Or not okay?
It's
if you
okay.
want to just leave it, that's fine.
I was going to support your earlier sentiment, which is that we're simply trying to get answers to
Okay,
the
that's fine,
question. But
that's
if you
No,
I mean,
I'm fine if that's your ruling. Then
the folks
I
have-
won't give my thoughts on it.
folks have come here to here's, I guess, hear the presentation and so on. No, that.
Test, test. Can you hear anything now for the you folks that are on Zoom?
They're saying yes.
Oh, so you can.
So
hear
you
these
should be
mics.
able to hear me as well, correct?
Okay. Yes, they can hear you
Yeah,
now, so I'm
okay.
not sure what happened,
There
but
seems
we,
to have been some little glitch there. It sounds went in and out from the internet, but not.
okay,
Okay, we're gonna carry on.
thank you.
Um. All right, anyway, I was in the process of thanking our presenter and thanking all of you who came in support of the delegation, and we will take it under advisement. Okay. The next item on our agenda tonight is the consent agenda. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. It's normal procedure to receive a delegation and thank the presenter formally by motion. So could I get a mover and seconder that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone receive for information the presentation from Kelvin Williamson of the Magnatowan Pioneer Association regarding boat storage, shore road allowance, and Boulder Landing. Mover and seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Bray. All those in favor? Please indicate. Thank you. That's carried. Oh, Councillor Woods moved. I can do that for you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I gotta sign it anyway. Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, you're welcome to stay, but I understand why if you, other than the fact that it's cool in here and not out there, I understand why you might want to.
I don't know, I just kind of feel that these people all showed up, we've listened to them. I guess we don't want to, we don't want to, we're not going to enter into a debate back and forth on 1,000 questions. But I don't think these good people know where we're going with this, or when it's going to come back to us, or whether we're going to do anything. And I think that's quite, if I were them, unsatisfactory. So, I looked at all the presentation material. I have some thoughts, not all of which you'll agree with me, but I think some of them you will. And I think there's a specific direction that we could go to hopefully resolve this. And but if you want me to wait for 2 weeks from now to a council meeting to say that, I can say it. I can say it under maybe councilor items at the end of the meeting, but I don't want you to sit here for 2 hours either. So I don't know what to do. That's the very point I was bringing up 5 or 10 minutes ago, right? They're going to leave very unsatisfied because they don't know how we feel on this, if anything, right? And I don't, it's obviously a council decision, not a Joe Lamb decision. So I don't know. I leave it to council. So.
Well, my as I said earlier, I'm not trying to, just stifle discussion. I don't think we're gonna solve the problem tonight, or, but there's no reason why counselors cannot make comments if they wish. I just, I'm not trying to prevent it from happening. If you want to take another few minutes, we don't have a terribly heavy agenda, I don't think so. If you want to take a bit longer, that's yeah, any opinion on the on others on the council? No? Hmm?
I'm happy if, Councillor Lamb wishes to.
It's okay. She said she's happy if Councilor
If
Lamb
Lam-
wishes to
Councillor
speak.
Lamb wishes to
Why don't you go ahead before,
You know,
before,
I want-
we'll take a
want-
couple more minutes, but.
I wanted to thank
yeah.
everyone for coming today, and I will assure you that I'm listening, and I'll assure you the other members of council are listening, okay? I guess I like to simplify things whenever I look at it, and there's a lot of fluff going around, and try to get to the point, okay? We're never, for instance, going to allow a private camera on public land. That's not going to happen. So whoever thinks it should, not going to happen from my standpoint. These comments are from my standpoint, okay? The trailers you don't have a problem with. I know people don't believe that we have to set a set of rules for all our landings and all our public land. And everyone, that was our attempt to do the last time, was to say, here's a set of rules. You don't like the set of rules with respect to the shore dockers, right? I think specifically. But you got to think of the ramifications that we have to think about the ramifications at every other boat launch, okay? You don't have to worry about it, but we do, okay? And having said that, the timing issue, I don't think it's a problem with council. Like August the 1st, I think would easily be, I don't know, what will it end up, the end of the year or whatever. So that timing issue isn't as, I don't think is critical as one may think. The only other issue that I think is really out at Bolger is the shore dockers. If you cut everything else out, it's the shore dockers. And, task forces in my 16 years go on, get more complex, get more demands, get more all kinds of things. I would suggest, and I think that's the only real decision we have to make with respect to Bolger, is that your executive, Kelvin, or the people out there, think through it very carefully and propose exactly what you want to council. But one question that goes in my mind is, when's too far? When's the boat too heavy? What about a 200 horsepower, 23-foot boat, right? Is that okay? I don't know. What are the ramifications from a liability standpoint for the municipality with that sort of situation, right? Because every year that it's going to get bigger and more complex, and they're not just simple winches. There'll be batteries. There'll be all kinds of things. So you have to, no, it's not a debate, Calvin, okay? You have to think through, in my opinion, those sorts of things, okay? And you have to be obviously cognizant of other areas, right? I can't go on, if I pulled a shore docker up here and left my boat here for 2 weeks while I went back south, that's not acceptable, right? So, but I also don't believe that one rule fits everyone. So don't get me wrong. I'm flexible on, there can be subtle differences at each place, okay? And I'm saying the subtle difference that I see at Bolger is the shore dock issue. So that's, in my opinion, what you should concentrate on and come back to council, not through a committee and everybody running out there and have a meeting and then getting it complicated with 42 other questions and that sort of thing. Let's keep it simple. Let's you do your work and bring a letter or something back to council for us to debate the shore dock issue. And unless I've got it totally wrong, the rest of it's, I don't mean to diminish any of the other arguments, against other issues, but I think it's the timing and the shore dockers. Those are the two issues as I read it. Am I wrong? Oh, okay, good. So could you do that if council agreed to that? And then we could have a fuller debate on the shore dockers as they relate to Bolger and other places. And I think we can come up. If I had the solution, Calvin, I'd tell you what it is right now from my standpoint. I've thought through this. And I can't come up with a solution that applies kind of all over the place, but yet satisfies some of the people at Bolger. And part of it is whether you, and I know there'll be people say, oh, that's a terrible thing to say. You have a marina. You now have a marina, and there are some people using it. There are boat access places on Whitestone Lake. You know what they do? They go over and they rent a slip all summer at the Whitestone Marine for $1,100. I called Will Roberts and asked him what his slip was. It's $500. It's a bargain. I know there's people, I don't want to use that. Well, you have to think through what other people do on other lakes. Wawashkesh, they go to Ed Bennett, they rent slips, they do things. There's a marina there, okay? And I'm saying that kind of changes it a bit, from what it was. I know people didn't want it and all this kind of stuff, but you've got to look at all the reality of this, okay? And maybe I've said too much, but I think if you came back on the shore dockers, we can take care of the timing thing, I'm sure, at the next meeting. You come back on the shore dockers, we can have a debate, make some sort of decision. So that's sort of where my general thoughts. So thank you.
Okay, does anyone else wish to weigh in?
Hopefully everybody can hear me. I'll just say a couple words if we're going on a little bit more. And I think I guess to start off again, I thanked you already, Calvin, for doing your presentation, which was good. But I think one thing that we have to keep in mind. Yeah, can you hear me all right now?
No.
All right, perfect. I think one thing we have to all try and keep in mind as a community overall, not just, the MPA, not just Whitestone, but overall as a community. And I think it was mentioned in the meeting about going back to the March 7th resolution. And I think one thing that we have to keep in mind is the resolution from March 7th was deferred. It was never passed. There was never a motion. There was a clerk's note that said that staff would speak with the MPA. And then back on June the 6th, staff presented a report to us based on, I think it was a meeting that took place on May the 3rd with the MPA. And it had mentioned that there's, boats continue to be allowed to be pulled up on shore. And I think, if you look at the council resolution that was passed on the 20th, boats are still able to be pulled up on shore and parked there. Nobody's saying boats can't be parked there. Everybody's saying, go use the lake, it's fine. There's no problems with parking of boats or storage of the boats. What else came out of that meeting discussion? It says to us in a report, rails, no rails. Winches should be allowed to help pull boat out of the water, which again, the resolution still says winches can be used. There's no problem with it. Just don't leave them out on the shore. Docks, and then it says no new docks to be installed. Discussed at board level and at owner level in the coming weeks regarding the 2 or 3 existing docks. Discussion about removal of dock timelines. And I think what we were told verbally was I think there was some mention of 5 years or something like that, that the dock should be allowed to be left for 5 years. So a resolution really. Oh, just let me finish. That was really going through it all. And, at the end of the day, our resolution addressed almost all of those items based on discussion. So when people say we didn't listen, we didn't hear, staff did have a meeting. It was deferred and then we came back and did something. Now, when it comes to the shore dockers, I think Councillor Lamb had a good question. What's too little? What's too much, right? Is a 16-foot shore docker okay? Is a 4-foot shore docker okay? Is a 50-foot shore docker okay? And I know there was some talk of liability. But I think on the other side of that liability, if there was a young child that was on a private dock that we knew was on our shore allowance and we didn't do anything about, and the child fell off that dock, hurt themselves or got killed, and we didn't act on that, we could probably be very liable for such a thing. If somebody trips on a shore docker because the boat's gone, if somebody trips on a rail system that's there. So there's a lot of other things to think about than just the use of the shore docker. You know, people are walking over the riparian zone and damaging the riparian zone. And is 2 shore dockers okay? But if there's, I think 50 or 60 members of the MPA and they all want a shore docker, well, then there's 50 or 60 of them. On
Can
other
you wrap it
lakes-
up, please, Councillor Nash? You
Yeah.
you said brief, you used the word brief.
Yeah,
Please
think
be
I-
brief.
I think I can finish my comment, Mr. Mayor. But if you take Lake Wawashkesh, people have been pulling boats up for years and decades probably on Wawashkesh shore, but without shore dockers. There's other ways to do it. So I think coming back, like Councillor Lamb had suggested, and maybe telling us, what are you looking for when it comes to that, would be a good starting point, right? To see what can maybe be done. Anyways, that's it. I just, I think there's been some discussion just in wrapping up that this was a Bolger item, and it was really, I think everybody here now knows, it was for the entire community. It was for every lake. We knew there wasn't really a problem, for examples of trailers out at Bolger, but there's issues with trailers on other lakes, right? So that's where this motion started from, and was started from that report that staff had done. So anyways, again, thank you for your time, Kelvin. Thank you for everybody that took their time of the day to come out today. So thank you.
It's just unclear on the dock. When you put a dock, does that also mean the MPA main dock, or is this the other docks? Does not include the MPA.
It's not the
No.
MPA dock, it's a municipal, but no, it's not the main dock at the landing, if that's what you're talking about. No. We're talking about other, I heard there was 3, and now I hear there's 1. There's 1 dock. That's the dock, not the main dock, not the main dock.
Just to be clear, the main dock, which is at the landing, is it was put there by the MPA under the agreement that the municipality has with the MPA. Similar to the docks that are at Wawashkesh, which were put there by the Wawashkesh Conservation Association originally under the agreement with the municipality, right? So
We should find.
you know,
more.
I don't want to prolong this discussion tonight, but let me simply say that I think there's first of all, there is no one size fits all solution for the lakes in the municipality. That's there are unique characteristics that they all have, and I thought until very recently that council was recognized that as a fact, and I certainly support us as a council looking at the requirements that we have at the various lake access points that we have, because we have quite a few of them. We have about 15 in total, and they're all different. and the requirements are different. And so I fully support us defining what the problem is that we're trying to solve before we start solving it at any particular location. But I think the general thrust of what I hear being suggested is the right one, that we need to try to figure out, and we need to get the help of the MPA to figure out what things would and wouldn't meet the requirements that they have in their unique environment. You know, we've you know, I think everybody has to recognize that it's and this is characteristic of the other landings that we have. It's just some of them, like the one we have here, have been around a lot longer and have been used for a longer time. And so they're, you know, they have evolved in a different way. But in this particular case, it seems not coincidental to me that the association of the cottagers on those lakes is called Pioneer Association, because believe me, if you want to go back there on a regular basis, you got some pioneering involved, and folks have historically come up to their own solutions to the problems that they faced. Why? Because the municipality was not prepared in the past, years ago, did not have resources to provide solutions for them.
Mr.
So,
Mayor, could you?
and
wrap-
that
could
is
you wrap it up,
exactly the
please,
same.
Mr. Mayor, you've been about as long as I have already before I
No,
got.
no, I
interrupted.
haven't. I've not nearly been as long as you have. So, you know, that again, I think that, and this pattern has been followed in other places. Well, Oshkosh is a good example where the local ratepayers looked after things for themselves for a lot of years, and they did it with the concurrence of the municipality. So I don't think we should be finding fault with anybody here. What we need to do is we need to figure out what a good solution is. And a good starting point for that would be for you folks who are here to see what you think would make sense, as Councillor Lamb has suggested, and bring that back to us, and then we can I think the other thing that you can rest assured is that nothing is really going to change in 2020, in the summer of 2023. So nobody's going to come up and start pulling these things out. We have a number of other steps that we would have to do in order to implement any changes. So we still have an opportunity for discussion, and I hope we can do that. And I think with that, unless any of my colleagues who haven't spoken wish to speak, I think what we should do is move on to another item. And again, thank you for coming, and let you get back to your places. Well, it's normally for the purpose of council. These things are for the purpose of council getting information and not for us to provide feedback. So I don't. I think we spent about as much time as we should, and I'm sorry to cut you off, really, but I'm.
Some reason this council has decided to pull down the only security in the parking lot. Since you pulled it down, we've had one gas line, we've had paddle stove. Yet last night, the dock was moved at the main dock.
Okay, well, could I suggest to you that what you should do under the circumstances is ask the municipality to address this particular question. They wanted, yeah. Okay, sorry, I'm gonna have to cut you off. You don't get to debate the chair.
Going on,
I
want one stove, not only to replace that security camera that's being, to add two others at your
Okay, but put that, can you put that in your request, please? Work with your association to make the request.
Fire department and the police say, because they had fire going on at both on the weekend. We don't
Okay.
know who came in and started that fire. But we have security and everybody else.
Okay, I hear what you're saying, but put it in your subsequent submission if you don't mind.
Feedback.
O- o-
That security camera back.
All right, you've made your point. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on to another agenda item here. You may be excused. Thank you. So, the next item on our agenda is the consent agenda. Just gonna get it up here. So could I get a mover and seconder for the following, please, that whereas the council has reviewed the consent agenda consisting of regular council meeting revised minutes for Tuesday, June 6th, regular council meeting minutes for June 20th, unfinished business listed on page 3. Now therefore be it resolved that the council of the municipality of Whitestone does hereby approve the following: the regular council meeting revised minutes of June 6, 2023, and the regular council meeting minutes for June 20th, 2023. And that the council of the municipality receives for information the unfinished business listing contained in the consent agenda. Mover and seconder, Councillor Woods, I saw first, Councillor Lamb is second. Any discussion?
I have one comment if I might through you, Mr.
Go
Mayor.
ahead.
And maybe it's something that I could take up with staff after, but I know for the June 6 revised minutes. When I listened to the recording and I went back and looked at an email I sent back on June 12th, which was in response to the items the staff had asked me to, what items I'd kind of had mentioned. There seems to be a few missing, I'll say, but it also still notes under the 4th point, Mayor Comrie noted that the fire chief hasn't completed the information for council just yet. And I know I'd asked that be stricken because it's not something I said. If it was going to go under mayor's notes or whatever, that would be fine, but it still hasn't been updated to what I believe was said based on the recording I listened to. So I'd kindly ask, instead of I can rhyme off the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 items that I spoke to that day now, or I could deal with staff outside of the meeting, which might make more sense, and bring it back to the next meeting. Whichever would be preferred.
Well, I guess I'd prefer the latter. Madam CAO, do you have any comment or? I don't.
No, I have no comment.
So what your point is that the things that were under your comments that you wanted removed are still there? Is that what you're saying?
Well,
I
sorry,
did-
through you, that's on page 11 of, or 40 of 113. Well, yeah, it still notes some comments that you'd said under my comments, so I don't think I said your comments. And there's a couple points that were just missing. I'd spoken about curfew. I'd spoken about the no camping sign. It's not on there. So anyways, I just, if possible, I thought it might be easier instead of reading my 8 points now. Just I could follow up and send it to staff outside of the meeting, and then it could be updated and brought back. That was all. I can do it now. I don't think anybody needs to
Well-
hear it go back and forth. That's all.
Okay, I'm just looking at what's on the page you're referring to. I don't see anything that is left there in the revised. I mean, the fact that I responded to your comment, there's nothing wrong with that being there. I don't have a section in the minutes, so.
Well, but Mr. Mayor, through you, you could have a section. That would mean that anytime somebody brought something up, you start a debate in the summary. It was an item I brought up, not a comment from you. And I think at the last meeting, it was, I think, if I recall correct, it was mentioned that something like that maybe could come out. Anyways.
Okay, but I don't, I don't know. Again, I think this is a materiality issue. Do we want to keep going around with this or do we want to just approve the minutes? I mean,
Well, we shouldn't
I'm
need to
sorry,
keep
I
it.
think.
Mr. Mayor, we should need to keep going around as staff listen to the recording and actually correctly input all the items that I spoke about. If we're
Okay,
gonna get
but the
down
mi-
and dirty about it. Like,
The-
I've asked about 8 items. There's not 8 items listed under my items.
The minutes are at the discretion of the clerk. If the minutes are inaccurate, I don't see anything there that is inaccurate. You don't like the way it was organized in the report, but.
Where's
Another time, what we can do is we can simply, remove all the commentary from those items and there'll be nothing written there. To record what you said. This is not material. It doesn't affect the council is approving them for accuracy. Are they,
Yeah,
do they reflect accurately what was
Mr. Mayor,
done or decided?
if I might say, it doesn't reflect accurately. I brought up a point about no camping signs. It's not mentioned there. We talked about the no camping signs part of it. It's not mentioned in there. So yes, it is inaccurate. That's my whole
But it's
point.
mentioned somewhere
Well,
else.
it's mentioned under Counselor Woods, but I'm not Counselor Woods, just like Mayor Comrie is not Scott Nash. So under counselor items, I brought it up. Counselor Woods brought it up when he spoke. I brought it up under mine. So we need to we don't need to give a diatribe of what's been talked about. We just need to give a point form of the accurate things that were brought up. I asked it to be looked at. Staff sent me something. I took time to write out my 8 things. And then I was told that it had already been posted on June the 12th for a June 20th meeting, 8 days early. So I tried to do what I was asked and then it didn't show up correctly. So I'm just asking that it be corrected.
Well,
Councilor Lamb.
for what it's worth, doesn't do us too much harm to not pass this particular June, whatever meeting it was, and have Counselor Nash get a hold of staff and work out what's accurate under what he wanted and come back the next time for us to approve. I'd rather than go around and around and around. I don't want to approve minutes that one counselor feels are inaccurate with respect to him, or her, or anyone else. I think there's a simple solution to it, and not just to not recognize what the counselor says and say we're gonna approve it anyway. I'm not gonna approve it, so. But anyway. The simple solution.
All right, are the mover and seconder willing to remove the reference then to the revised regular, so 7.1.1, which was the revised minutes for Tuesday, June 6th from the motion, and we're just,
Who was the mover and second?
you
Oh,
and
I-
Council,
well, I am.
you and Councilor Woods, Councilor Woods, you. All right, so the motion as amended has 7.1.1 struck out of it. Can we then approve the motion as it with that amendment?
Yep.
All those in favor, please indicate. All right. All right, I'm just gonna make a pencil note on my copy here. All right. So. See where we are. I think the next item is accounts payable, 8.1. Mover and seconder, please, that the council of the municipality of Whitestone receive for information the accounts payable listing in the amount of $442.03 for the period ending June 30th, 2023. Moved by Counselor Wood, seconded by Counselor Nash. Any discussion? Counselor Lamb.
Yeah, just have a couple. Bottom of, I think the first page, or maybe not, page 56 of 113. Is the first page. Jill Langford and Paul Langford. Just interesting that all I can read on here is refund dash non-refundable fee. How do you refund a non-refundable fee? I guess is my question. Didn't notice that. I'm sure. there's a
Would you
reason,
have any
but if it's
idea what
non-refundable,
that is,
it should be
Madam CAO?
non-refundable.
I'll just make a note and look into it.
Okay. I imagine they put an application in and then decided they didn't want to, but. I don't know. If it's non-refundable, maybe it's non-refundable. My only other question was, and I asked the clerk this afternoon, on page 63 of 113, there's Sun Life health benefits from December through till May. And I said, why are we, you know, and they seem to be moving all over 51, 4,200, 4,200, 4,200, 6,100, 6,100. But why 5 or 6 months in a row? So, you know, whether you have time to get a hold of Manish or not, so
It's through you, Mr. Mayor. I do have an answer.
thank you.
These, the health benefits are a direct deposit monthly. So they were paid monthly. The treasurer and his staff are just catching up on the bank reconciliations. So you're seeing them here on the accounts payable where they had been paid all along. And you're right, there was an increase in April. We expected it. We knew it was coming.
Okay,
So that's why you're seeing. a
that was
jump.
just our costs going up that you recognize.
That's
in the
right,
budget.
in the budget, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it for you, Counselor Lamb? Yes?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, Counselor Woods.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just had two real quick ones. On the first page, page 56. 37013, Eva mentioned admin communications. I was just wondering what that was for. I didn't,
I'm sorry, which one is it?
37013. Eva Fincham. Admin communications.
Oh, okay. Our CAO will answer that.
Yes, I can, Eva Fincham, does our communications work for us now, the work that I used to do. And others, that we hired out, contracted out. So that's now done by Eva. This was several months worth of costs. I don't know if it was 2 or 3. I'd have to check again. But she does our Facebook work now. She does the e-news. She's doing the newsletter now. So you'll see her name, and it's a contract as opposed to an employer relationship.
Okay, thanks for that. And the next one, just a couple below it. 37016, John Hosick. Beaver dams goods for beavers trapped, $300. I know Mr. Hosick. I know what he does, but we're still have beavers trapped to maintain, was it roadway systems or, you know, keep the beavers at bay for our swamps or wetlands?
These are through you, Mr. Mayor. These are like, I would have to check with Dave Creaser, but just from brief conversations with him, these are beavers that have gotten into culverts, road culverts that are causing grief or are about to cause grief. So, and I'm not, I know he didn't do much last year, so I'm assuming he got a few this spring.
For nuisance beavers, I guess is what it would be then, right?
That's what they could be
Okay.
described as.
Thank you. That's all.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, one of them is, for instance, on Balsam where what do you call, Council Brade, where you draw the water from there. There's a culvert there and there's a beaver that gets in there. I don't know whether that was one of the 4, but it's things like that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, if I might,
ahead.
I had actually the first two items I had scratched off here were the beaver dams and also Eva. So if I understand correct, just going back to the 37013, the communications. Has she been engaged, I guess, as a consultant, not an employee? Is that how we're doing that one going forward?
It's a contract.
Okay.
Yes.
And the reason I had the beaver dams highlighted, somebody told me, and I'm sure they were wrong, but I figured now is a perfect time to ask. Somebody told me there was like a beaver payment if you catch a beaver and you could submit paperwork to the municipality. I'm sure they were just joking with me. This was actually for we engage somebody because of culverts or whatever, correct?
We don't want beaver hunters.
Okay, and I'm just going through here. There was two other quick questions I had here. One of them, I just got to find the page. It was page 61, and it was for Hillpole and Associates for the year-end audit. I was actually just wondering when I saw it, is the year-end audit complete now? Like, have they finished all their work?
That's through you, Mr. Mayor. Almost done, 99.9% done. There's just a few questions to answer.
Perfect.
And the auditors will be making a presentation on August 1st.
Great, perfect. And the last one was just, I noticed there's a new signature on them all now at the very end. And my eyesight must be really bad. I noticed it says report prepared for council, and it says Sylvia Buckingham, but I just was wondering what the little print was next to it. My eyesight must just be too small to read it. So I don't, maybe if people can't read it, maybe if you can just send it to us after. or something. I was just curious what the fine print was on it.
It's just it's just a stamp saying that there's an electronic, should use an electronic signature. That's all it is.
Perfect.
It says duly signed by Sylvia
Yeah,
Buckingham.
Your eyesight's better than mine. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, so are there any other questions or comments? All right, can we call the question then? All those in favor of receiving this report? Thank you. Okay, that will take us to business matters, and these are ones, the next few anyway, are ones that were left over from our meeting on June 20th, which we ran out of time essentially. So we have two copies of the same thing here. All right, so this is there is a suggested resolution, and I guess it was on the previous meeting. That the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone received for information the memorandum from CAO Clerk Henry entitled "No Camping Signs at Boat Launches and Water Access Points," dated June 20th, 2023. And that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone hereby directs Public Works staff to remove all no camping signs at municipally owned lands and lands that are under the authority of MRF where a land use permit is in place with the municipality of Whitestone. I don't know where this. Was that motion there before? Because I don't remember seeing it.
I believe it was, Mr. Mayor.
Hmm?
I believe it was. This was a recommendation from discussion at the previous meeting. So the reason just for clarity, the reason I did the memos, I just wanted to make sure that I was able to provide some good information to council. It may not change what the decision is, but the no camping, there is camping permitted, of course, as you know, on Crown lands. So I just wanted to provide some legislative information. And I talked about the Public Lands Act and the Ontario Regulation 161-17, and just so council had more information before them as they make the decision about removing no camping signs. And I think what I tried to find out when I heard that counselors were interested in this is, how did the no camping signs go up? Was there an issue? Did something happen that precipitated council asking staff to put up no camping signs in different locations? And as you can see, bylaw officer Paul Rossiter is aware of a very small number of camping related issues. And he himself didn't have a lot of knowledge as to how these signs ended up where they are and why they're there. So it's just one of those things that happen over the years in small municipalities and sometimes they're just not recorded and a sign goes up and there it stands. So the purpose of the memorandum, it did get a bit lengthy, was just to give you the actual facts as I could see them, with legislation and let everyone know what, the situation with no camping, and it differs a little bit. So that's the reason for the memo.
Okay, well, thank you for that explanation. I guess what's tripping me up here is that in the report, which I see, there's information about it. But I don't know where the idea was that it came from, that we would want to permit camping at a public boat launch. And the actual fact of the matter is the Public Lands Act prohibits camping at boat launches. And that is in the material that was quoted to you. That's where the signs, many of the original signs came from. But even if it was our property, there's a boat launch right there outside the window here. Would you want people to come and camp on it? You don't. So I'm wondering if all we really want in this motion is to receive the report. I don't think what we want to do is go and say, no, we're going to remove the signs and then thereby encourage people to park at the boat launches and water access points. Because I don't think that's what we want to do. So I mean, I'm looking for a motion here, but because we should get something on the floor, but
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I thought Councillor Woods, and I stand to be corrected, brought this up because the no camping sign could be inferred that you can't camp on the lake or on Crown land on the lake. And just no camping, if someone comes into a boat launch, says no camping. They may read it like they can't get in their canoe and go out to Long Arm Bay out here and set up a camp for a weekend, right? I think that was the initial inquiry. So if the signs are to be to do anything, it would be replaced by no camping allowed at the boat launch or at this boat launch or something to that effect, right? But maybe I have it wrong. That's how I recall it.
Councillor Woods, Dave, can you clarify what landing you were talking about?
All of them that have the sign that says no camping. Not all of our boat launches are created equal, right? We all know that. All you had to do is go to them.
But what
And look at them.
what ones do you think people should be allowed to camp at?
I'm not saying that people, okay. First of all, we gotta talk about camping. No overnight camping or overnight parking should be permitted in any of our parking areas or our landing areas, right? For just people camping purposes. It's different if you're water access, you're parking your truck and your trailer, and you're going out on the lake. Okay, that I completely understand. But the feeling you get when you pull up to some of them and you see a sign that just says no camping and it's right at the boat launch is there's no camping on that lake. That shouldn't be.
Okay, so
And
would
like
you
you said,
like
Mr. Mayor,
the
it says,
motion? So would you like to move a motion then, since you were the originator of this, that would you like to modify the second part of it so that it says to remove, not to remove the no camping signs, but to make it clear that the camping is that the no
Yeah.
camping applies to the
parking areas.
parking area?
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that.
Is
And the
that-
launch
is that-
zone, right?
Hmm?
There should be no camping or overnight camping. I mean, you could day camp. You could come and pull your motorhome up and throw a boat in the lake and go around for the day and come back and then you leave.
Yeah.
That's a day camp, right? That's no overnight camping in the parking areas.
Yeah. Okay, so so instead of What, have you got one here? Oh, all right, so.
But it
The
does
clerk
say.
is trying
writing-
is trying to get us to capture this properly, and I agree.
maybe Mr.
So the council, the second part of the motion, and then I'll get you to move it, should read that the council of the municipality of Whitestone hereby directs to replace the, we'll call it replace the no camping signs at municipally owned lands and lands that are under the authority of MNRF where a land use permit is in place with the municipality of Whitestone to read. Oh, sorry, replace with signage that reads no overnight camping. What do you want to say, at lake access point or in boat launch parking area or something? What do you want to say?
There's
How
under
about
the-
at lake access point?
the Ontario Regulation 161/17, the public lands that are occupied are not part of a road, trail, parking lot, or a boat launch.
No overnight camping, what do you want to say, in boat launch area? Is that what you want to say, or in lake access, at lake access point, or? I just want to get the wording right.
On
Part of
publicly-
a road, trail, parking lot, or boat launch.
Yeah, but are you gonna,
That would make it easy, no?
yeah, that, I mean, that's simply, that's for the ones that are public lands, right? But
Yeah, and if I might, Mr. Mayor, just through, just when we're thinking of the signage. Yeah, sorry, there must be a problem with my mic today, or I'm talking too quiet. I know that we're speaking of, I think we have to, I think we're all sitting here trying to follow proper protocol, which is great. But I think some of the signs that we were speaking of were of the ones at Lake Wawashkesh, Indian Narrows, and Bennett's Bay. And as you know, currently we do not have a land use permit for those landings. So there should be no signs there whatsoever. So we should remove those signs at those locations until we actually have a current in-place land use agreement with the MNR, which we do not have right
do
now.
we have, our CAO is nodding, he may have just got it.
Yes, yes, we have been given notice that it's been approved and after, I think about 18 months after our application. But anyway, it's on its way. We're waiting for another one for another site, but that one is close.
Excellent.
You wouldn't have known that from
No.
our previous discussions, yeah.
And then I think if we're talking about no camping, I'm gonna paraphrase a very simple thing. I think Councillor Wood's trying to quote the Ontario regulation. So if a sign said no camping, no overnight camping within parking or boat launch area as per regulation 161-17. So you're quoting the regulation and the sign's up and it simply says no overnight camping at parking area or boat launch as per Ontario regulate, it'd be really small print as per Ontario regulation 161-17. If that works for you, I'm thinking of the wording for it.
Yeah,
That makes it easy.
the only reason I would not want to do that is that doesn't apply to property that we own, right? That applies to Crown land.
So then on the ones that we own, you just wouldn't quote the regulation number.
Why don't, I don't know, why don't we just say no overnight camping in parking and boat launch area? Isn't that good enough?
That'll work for me, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
It bothers me when I pull up to a boat launch because it's what I did my entire life and I encourage people to come out and go camping and explore the lakes, right? I love seeing people bring young kids, especially on trips like that. And when you pull up to an area and there's a sign that says no camping, it gives you the feeling like you're not supposed to camp on that lake,
No.
and that shouldn't be.
Right.
That's it.
No, okay. All right, so
I'd hate to throw a monkey wrench into the thing, but I'm thinking of, we don't want we don't want overnight camping on any land that's owned by the public in Whitestone. We don't want someone pulling into the twist, where the twist was, and set up camp,
no,
right? That, we own that. We don't want that, I don't think. So it applies not only to boat launches, it applies to all land that's owned or under a permit by the municipality. I mean, if we're gonna deal with it, deal with the whole thing, not just boat launch, right?
yeah, again, my response would be that that's unauthorized parking on municipal property, which in fact is covered under the parking bylaws. So if somebody does do that and they park there when they're not supposed to,
That doesn't,
this is really about, this is about signage. It's just about making the signage clear that all we're saying
Okay.
is don't park in the,
okay,
and I mean, there probably are other places we could put up signs like that, but it's I'll just read the second paragraph of this again, just, and then I'll ask for a mover and seconder, since we've been having all this discussion without the motion on the table. That the council of the municipality of Whitestone hereby directs public works staff to replace no camping signs, no camping at municipally owned lands and lands that are under the authority of MNRF where a land use permit is in place with the municipality of Whitestone with signage that reads, no overnight camping in parking and boat launch area. It's a nice, simple sign. Moved by Councillor Woods, seconded by
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Nash. Thank you. Any further discussion?
I just have one really quick thing. I don't know if all, Councillor Woods, you might know better than I would. I don't know if all the boat launches we have do have signs or don't have signs. So I'm just thinking if we are gonna replace, to remove all no camping signs, maybe when we're putting the new ones up, maybe we should make sure that they're going at all the launch points. So there's, at least one at each launch point, just as, I'm just talking out loud here.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point. If they're gonna make some new signs to replace them, then they might as well make enough to go wherever they should go. I agree. All right, any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate. Thank you. That motion is carried. Thank you. CIO. All right, so 11.2 was a discussion about a so-called equipment list discussion. Which oh yes, it was. Now there is an equipment list. Which was provided in response to a request, and again, it was Councillor Woods. I guess we don't need to, I don't know whether we need a discussion or not, but do you have a motion to accept that report? Receive for information. Thank you. How about this? That the council of the municipality of Whitestone receives for information the Public Works and Building Department vehicle equipment list. Councillor Woods is moving that we do that. Seconded by Councillor Nash. Now, any discussion?
I'll go first since I brought it up, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I solely bought it up for the purpose of make sure this list is in our face. We've already finished the budget, but I think this should come back before we're talking about our next budget. Reason being is I looked at the price of buying a brand new truck and I know we're gonna need some. We know how much the price increase was to our fire truck that we were looking at purchasing. You know, the cost of a pickup truck that I know that we could have bought a few years ago for 45 to 50,000 is up over 65 to 75 now. For a basic half ton. So I just think that these need to be, we need to look at what we have for equipment, because our equipment costs are gonna go up regardless of what anybody likes to hear. And they're all things that we need to maintain what we have here and the level of service that we have here.
Yep.
That was basically it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah.
Counselor Nash.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. Just a couple questions. I noted one of the big ones, when I was looking at the list, was the grader. And I know a number of years back, I remember hearing some of the conversations about the grader. And I know it shows here that it should be 18 years, which would be 2028, yet we have in 2025, 3 years beforehand. And I think we just have to be careful that, I know the backhoe that we recently traded in, I think it was 8 years old. And I'm looking here when it says recommended life cycle 10 years. So I think we have to be really careful on this, this expensive equipment when, you know, the recommended life cycles aren't being achieved for big ticket items, be it, you know, the backhoe, be it the grader. And I look back at Councillor Woods mentioned it, the fire truck, and it's recommended at 25 years, I think. And I think we're a couple years past that already. So I think we have to try to get into extending the lives, not replacing them early, right? And I don't know if that's wear and tear, if it's maintenance, if it's the way people are using the machines. I'm sure a new grader is like $1 million or something, or close to it. And if we can get 3 extra years out of it, that's saving us, you know, 100 grand a year or something. So I think that's something real important. And the other thing is just, I think it was briefly touched on a last council meeting or maybe the council meeting before. When I look at the 2022 pickup and the 2020 or 2018 pickup with 177,000, and I look at the 2022 pickup with 41,000, and I compare that to the 2019 building inspectors Equinox at only 30,000. I don't know if today's the day to discuss it. I'm more than happy to if council wishes to, but I know we have a couple staff that take the pickup trucks home at night, which council just recently found out about. And I would like to discuss that. I don't think it should be the municipality's directive to have staff take pickup trucks on an over 100-kilometer round trip every day outside of the municipality. When in order to get to our yard, we're only a couple minutes into the municipality. So it's not saving any time. There's no tools on some of these trucks. So I don't know if that would be for, maybe staff can direct me if that would be for a closed meeting discussion, or if we could talk about that today and possibly come up with a resolution that, you know, going forward, maybe staff doesn't take the trucks. We're on a tight budget, and, you know, replacing a new pickup truck a couple years early because it's getting driven, you know, an hour each way outside of the municipality each night is costing the municipality tens of thousands of dollars a year. And I think there's better ways we can spend the money. So would that be a discussion for today, or is that a discussion for a closed meeting?
Well, frankly, my opinion is that it's not a discussion for any day. That's really an operational matter. And when we have people who have responsibilities to be on call, it's a normal practice that they have access to vehicles. If they don't, we're going to be paying them compensation for the use of their own vehicle, right? Which so anyway, I don't think that's certainly not a discussion for today. If you want, I guess, you know, staff can prepare some sort of a report saying this is why we do what we do, right? But it's,
Yeah, that would be.
and then you
fine.
could see if it was gonna solve any problem, but it's, our our staff have to have some latitude in how they assign people's work responsibility, especially for folks who are in supervisory responsibilities and are on call at any particular point in time.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Mr. Mayor, but I know in many large municipalities, the municipal trucks are parked at the closest, be it fire station or whatever it might be, just at the limits of the municipality. So they don't actually leave the municipality. If somebody's on call, they drive in if they're gonna get a kilometer rate or something. I don't think people are on call and come in every day on call. But a lot of municipalities, I think when staff investigate it, they'll see that a lot of people leave the vehicles just at the limits of the municipality, and then they drive their own vehicle from that point outwards. So staff could come back with a report on it. I'm sure there's a large taxable benefit and everything like that. And it would be nice for council to understand what this benefit is worth a year. I'm sure it's like 15 grand or something like that. We're not talking small dollars on replacement trucks. Again, I think anyways, if staff can come back with a report on it, outlining it and what other municipalities allow that would be great, and what the costs are directly to us, so we can be transparent and open with the taxpayers on what that's costing us a year for these trucks to leave the municipality at the end of each day. Thank you.
Okay, well, we have this motion on the floor. I'll give you an opportunity if you want to move another one. If there's nothing, oh, sorry. Councilor Bray, yes.
Yes, this is a really good chart, and it really helps to have an idea of when they were purchased and then what the asset management plan says when they should be replaced, and then staff suggestions. I guess my concern here is to know whether we are putting the proper amounts of money into the reserves to be able to deal with this when the time comes, because this is why we got into a position where we didn't have enough money for for even a fire truck for what maybe everyone thought it might cost in 2 years' time, and found out that it's even more. And now, so I think that all vehicles, I mean, I think this is what asset management plans are all about. It's for preparing for the future. When the asset management plan comes forward for the buildings, we're going to know what things, what's the standard, the industry standard for replacing certain things, and we need to be prepared for that. And it's not getting any cheaper, for sure. So I have no idea what the greater cost, but if in 2028 is what the asset management plan says, but staff are saying 2025, that's only 2 years away. So how are we going to manage this as well as other things? And we still haven't even been able to figure out the fire truck at this point. So my thoughts are that we need to have this in front of us. We also need to have this in front of us when we are debating the reserves and the budget. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else about the list itself?
Have we
Okay.
passed, or have we introduced a motion already? Sorry. We did, right?
Yeah,
Okay. I seconded it.
we'll get to yours in a sec. Let's just do this one if you don't mind. If there's nothing further about the receiving the report for information, then I'd like to call a question on that, and then all those in favor? Okay, thank you. That's carried. Now, do you do you wish to make a motion along the lines of what you were suggesting, Councillor Nash? All right, this would be to ask, request a report from staff about,
Yeah, that
Whatever.
would be fine. If we had a motion that was request a report back to council on personal use of municipal vehicles and the cost implications. Is that, I think I summarized it there. If you got that, or I might have said it too quick, Mr. Mayor.
well, okay, so the motion that as I have it, is that the council of the municipality of Whitestone ask staff to report on personal use of vehicles by staff and its financial implications. Does that cover?
That would be just fine.
So
Mr. Mayor,
are you,
thank
you're
you.
moving that?
Yeah, I'll move that.
Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Woods. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate. Okay, thank you. That's carried. All right, 11.3. Okay, this is an item that was raised by Councillor Lamb with respect to the to the Westbury Sound Recreation and Culture Center. So I'm gonna read the motion that is here, and if there's a mover and seconder. Whereas the municipality of Whitestone remains committed to supporting the Westbury Sound Recreation and Cultural Center per the funding agreement signed October 2022. And whereas the funding agreement required a review of the operating model, projected operating costs, and reserve requirements for the facility by independent management consultants with expertise in such reviews to be completed prior to final design of the facility at the board's cost. And whereas the municipality of Whitestone understands that BDO has been engaged to undertake this review. Now therefore be it resolved that the municipality of Whitestone requests a copy of the terms of reference and engagement letter for BDO. And that Whitestone would like to caution the board that this appears to be a cursory review which may not meet the conditions set out in our agreement, and that the review of the municipality is requesting is a new independent review and not a review of previous studies, thus requiring a new independent review of the cost, revenue, and reserves. Is that your motion, Councillor Lamb?
Yeah, I'll make the motion. I'll make the motion, yes.
Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Wood, seconds. Okay, discussion. Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, thank you. Three of us on council have lived the recreation and pool, recreation and cultural center, which includes the pool, during the last term of council. We
Can you speak into the mic? I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I don't think people can hear
need to
you.
replace the mics is what we need to do, but anyway, yeah, I will, thank you. So I followed the meetings. I asked I think through council a couple months ago, whether they were going to do this review and whether, and when, and they came back, of course, and said that they would be doing it, and they'd be doing it in 2023. I was quite alarmed that, not that they hired BDO, because BDO is a reputable firm, but that the cost to do this review was $5,000. BDO doesn't open their washroom door for $5,000. It's not very much of their time or effort. And when we were going through this, I can remember, and people can go back through the tapes. I can remember me asking of council several times, at least 2, maybe 3 times. This is a full independent review. Yes, it is. Got nothing to do with CPS and architectural firm or anyone like that. It's a new review. And to be clear, the results of the review have nothing to do with our funding. Like you could say it's going to make money or lose money or whatever. They still get our money. But it's got to be a full independent review. And I don't think this one is. I don't think they can possibly do it for $5,000. And out of an abundance of care, I don't want them to come back with a review that I would say on council, that doesn't meet our requirements. And we're therefore not going to support our $250,000 capital spend. I want to work with them. I think I would like to see the terms of reference. It's our request. It's their study. But I think it's prudent. Or do we do nothing? And then when the study comes back, say, nope, that doesn't agree. I think we're in far better position to at least make our feelings known now. And I find it in this report that's attached here on page 72, it's a report to the board. It says agreement with Whitestone, and it says the review is currently underway. I'm stunned how they can do a review when they don't even know what they're building. They don't have a scope. They said that in the meeting. They don't have architectural drawings. They don't even know the location of where this pool is going to be. So if I'm going to do a study, I'll make it simple of a cottage that I'm building, and I want to rent that cottage out, and I want BDO to do a study of what my costs will be for that cottage and what my revenues might be from renting it, and what the reserves I'd require to put away to replace the roof and other things into the future. You know, that to me, if I don't say, here's the size of the building and here's how many bedrooms I want and here's how many whatever I want, how can you do it such a study? You can't. So this is in my opinion, a very cursory sort of study to say, we did it and, you know, give us your money. And I guess they either underestimate me and Councillor Woods, who voted, well, I think we all voted for the agreement in fairness, but so that's the genesis of this. And, you know, I want to work cooperatively with them. And I don't want to hear about how it's going to cause amalgamation and you know, if Whitestone asking a simple request of terms of reference of a study as our requirement causes amalgamation, then we're going to get it anyway. So I don't, you know, that's a non-starter for me. And anyway, those are my thoughts. I could go on and on. But I think this should be passed, and I think as a result of this, the clerk should write a letter, if it's passed, to the pool committee, saying here's what was passed, and wait hopefully for their response. Hopefully they'll be cooperative with us. If they're not, then we've at least tried. So, okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, well, I cannot support this motion, and I'll explain to you very quickly why. It doesn't have anything to do with amalgamation, by the way, but it's Whitestone forfeited its opportunity to participate in this project from a governance point of view. That was decision of Whitestone Council for whatever reason. Part of that long debate that we had. If we hadn't done that, of course, then there would be an opportunity for our representative to sit at the table and say to the board, make sure that, try to help them to understand exactly what it is that that's contemplated here. But essentially, we don't get to tell them. And we did not establish, I think the other important point, which Councillor Lamb has already agreed with, is that we didn't establish any conditions on the content of the report. We said it had to be independent, and we said what it had to cover. And whether or not it can be done for $5,000, I don't know. I guess it depends maybe on what other work they might be getting from BDO and all these kinds of things. And they certainly can't do it now. So we're not, I have no argument with that. I would be surprised that they would be letting a contract to do it at this stage of the game. But nevertheless, I don't feel like we have the right to ask that. And this kind of a motion will be treated as inflammatory by the Shared Services Board. I can guarantee you that. And it will be viewed, notwithstanding what's in the resolution, as an attempt to say, oh, let's see if we can find out. Let's say we can find out some way to get out of this commitment that we made. And whether this happens today or whether it happens a year from now or whenever, I think I'm very confident in saying that an attempt by Whitestone to sort of renege on the commitment is going to result in action to in effect enforce the agreement that we already have. I mean, I think that's what you can expect. And I think it is not in the interest of the municipality of Whitestone in its relationship with its neighbors, who are, all committed to this project and are trying to get it done, to try to isolate ourselves further on this matter. So I'm going to vote against the motion. I think this is not in our best interest as a municipality to sort of be just injecting these things, saying, no, we're watching you, and if you don't do what we want, then it's going to prejudice the funding. Because at the end of the day, I mean, that train has left the station. We are going to pay. We are going to honor our commitment, and I don't think anybody should get the idea that we're not.
Well, that will be a council decision, not your decision.
No,
That'll be a council decision. not
well,
your decision.
I'm saying regardless of what council does, now we're into future. We will be held to the commitment that we made.
But Mr. Mayor, not if I may have the floor. First of all, when you say they can't do it, they say in the report, the review is currently underway. If that had anything to do with anything else, that you would be saying that's not right. How can they be doing the review now? And that's what they say in their report. It's a cursory review. And if you go back to when we made all the motions about this agreement, you were firm that it wasn't a review of some other study done 10 years ago or 5 years ago. It was a new study. Once they decide what they're going to build, what their costs are and what their revenues are. And Mr. Mayor, that $5,000, you say, well, I don't know whether that'll cut it or maybe it does. $5,000 with a firm like BDO would be a 2-page report. It's such a cursory review. And I work for the municipality and the people of Whitestone, and they won't think it's frivolous to ask this, and they'll think it's right to ask. And they will appreciate that we're going to bat to at least hold their feet to the fire to do what we asked them to do. And if you look at the motion, it says, whereas the municipality of Whitestone remains committed to supporting the West Perry Sound Recreation and Cultural Center per the funding agreements. That's the first thing that's said. All we're wanting to do is know, what are the terms of reference? What are you doing? This whole board in Perry Sound, I've listened to all their meetings. They are the most secretive group I've ever seen in my life. They go in and have 15-minute meetings. Everybody nods and nobody in the public knows where it's going to be, what it's going to be. They're selling T-shirts, maybe someone's going to have signing or naming rights. I've never seen such a group that doesn't communicate with the public and with their citizens, whether it's Perry Sound or any of the other. They just are not communicating. They're trying not to communicate. Because I think if they know if this study was done properly, that they wouldn't like the results. That's the fear that they have. And anyway, it's underway. It says it's underway. And when I read that, that was part of the genesis of this thing.
And
Well, okay, I think that's, I think the idea that it's underway must be misleading, but in any case,
Well, it's in there
I-
before.
yeah, okay,
And through you, Mr. Mayor, if I might.
yeah, go
Um,
ahead.
I would agree with and echo what Councillor Lamb said about the $5,000. If we're talking about a $35 million pool, which is probably more like a $50 million pool with inflation over the last 3 years. And somebody says we're gonna spend $5,000 to do a review of the operating model, projected operating revenues, costs and reserve requirements for the facility by independent management consultants, and they're still designing the building. I don't know how it can be done for that amount. I don't know how it could be underway, which it clearly says in the steering committee report that was dated June 14th. It says the review is currently underway. And I also echo that the very first part of the resolution did still say that Whitestone remains committed to it. But I wasn't on council when all the pool stuff was going, but I do kind of find it interesting that everybody wants money for the pool. Yeah, when we put up $1 million nursing station, I think one other community out of 7 gave money for it. I think it was 1, maybe 2. I think 1 backed out. So I find it funny when we want something, we don't get it. But when they want it, we better give it. We better not say anything because we don't want to ruffle the feathers of anybody and make them think we're asking for too much when all we're actually asking for is exactly what we've asked for, and just saying, we don't know if the amount of money you're doing is going to cut it for doing this report. So can you please just make sure what you're doing is what Whitestone was looking for to make sure it makes sense when that report's done. Right? So I don't think that's a bad thing to ask for. I think it's actually good to ask up front to say, are you sure you're doing the report that we thought we were getting, instead of them wasting the money, having a report come back, then us ask them to do another report. So I think it's being upfront, and actually one word I always talk about is being very transparent, that we're actually saying, hey, maybe you can do something a little different here so it can be a little bit more detailed. So I'll be in support of the motion.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bray,
Yes, I was reading the both of these and.
is your mic on, by the way?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yep.
Yeah.
And listening to both Councillor Lamb and Councillor Nash. When I look at the conditions of funding, the committee outlined above, the commitments outlined above are conditional on a review of the operating model, projected operating revenues, costs, and reserve requirements for the facility by an independent management consultant with expertise in such reviews to be completed prior to the final design of the facility at the board's cost. So I'm not sure that I don't have a problem with maybe us asking to see what the terms of reference or what they were looking at. But I do find it a little hard to support where we're cautioning the board that this appears to be a cursory review. We might question the board. We might ask whether this is a cursory review, but cautioning the board, I have a problem with that wording. I think that if there was a discussion about whether they were doing the review according to what they are required to in the funding agreement, then maybe perhaps there's a difference in opinion as to what people feel, but as long as they are doing what they are asked to do, I don't know that we can sort of set the terms of reference for that. I'm not sure that we can. So anyways, I find this motion a little difficult to be able to vote in favor of it with the wording as it is. And also, I also find it difficult when things come up and we're not given the time as counselors to be able to really understand all of the issues. And so I probably will not be supporting this. I would probably support something that came back that requested a little more information from them, but I find it hard to be able that, you know, we're trying to set the terms of reference when that's not stated in the funding, the conditions of funding. Thank you.
Okay, thank
Through
you.
you, Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, Councilor Bray, we're not asking to set the terms of reference. We're asking for them to give us the terms of reference. There's a difference. We have, at least I have in my mind, what was discussed while I was on council 2 years ago, and I think Councilor Woods does too, and I think the mayor does too. All we're trying to do is to make sure that they are going to do a study that meets the conditions that we put in. And we're just asking for the terms of reference and they're not, and then they're being, I think we even asked them before and they didn't give them to us, right? But we're going on record to protect ourselves rather than, I mean, I could have this debate and say nothing at all, and then they come back with a one-page report of a review of some old study and then say that doesn't cut it. And then we're in the same boat. At least we're in a position that we're asking, I think, in a cooperative way, and we have every right to do that. We're spending $500,000 over the next 10 years or more on this project. And we're, as you know, tight for money. And I'm committed to it as long as they do the study. That's all I'm asking. And that's all I think Councilor Woods is asking. Anyway, I guess we can call the vote, I guess.
Okay, I
I
think-
asked for a recorded vote. but-
yeah, I think we should do that, yes.
Counselor Bray,
No,
Counselor Lamb,
Yes.
Counselor Nash,
Yes.
Counselor Woods,
Yes.
Mayor Comrie.
No. Okay, thank you. So we have two more of these items and then correspondence and counselor items, questions from the public. So we don't have too much more to do. There is the clerk has advised that there are some sandwiches or whatever. Do you want to take a quick break and just?
Sure. That'd be great.
Okay, then we'll declare a recess. I'm gonna try and make it about 15 minutes because. Yeah, all right.
Anyone left? Okay.
There we go. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're back. Thank you very much. We're now at item 11.4 on the agenda, which is a report from our CAO clerk, essentially suggesting that it's going to be problematic to meet in Ardbeg on August, at least to have this kind of meeting. So do you want to introduce your report, or here, I'll take that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the memo was self-explanatory. We gave it a good old college try. There's no internet at the Ardbeg Community Club. And we don't have something that we could take there to, we don't have don't even know what you call it, a hub that we could take over. So we tried a meeting off of Hotspot. It wasn't too bad, but it's risky. And you simply risk more complaints to the ombudsman's office if it fails. The audio was difficult as well. We brought our own audio equipment and had to do the connectivity that we have here to make sure that people on Zoom hear us and we hear them. And that proved to be questionable. So Muriel Stiles, who met us there and opened up the building for us, she recalled, of course, why we did meet at Ardbeg for many years. And it was an honor of the mayor, and it seemed it was an easy thing to do before we did hybrid meetings. But there would be no hard feelings if we didn't meet there from the Ardbeg club folks. So my recommendation is you not take the risk and that you move the meeting back here. We have to amend our list of resolution or our schedule of meetings simply to say that the meeting is not in Ardbeg, that it's in Benchurch. So that's those are my thoughts on that particular issue.
All right, can I get here's a suggested motion, and I'll ask for mover and seconder. That the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone receives for information the memorandum from CAO Clerk Henry regarding the August 1st, 2023 regularly scheduled council meeting, Ardbeg Community Club, dated July 4th, 2023, and that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone hereby amends the current 2023 schedule of council meetings as follows. Regular council meeting, August 1st, 2023, revised location, Dunchurch Community Center. Is there a mover and seconder?
Before you go, I just noticed on the actual agenda, it says memorandum August 3rd, 2000 council meeting. It should say August 1st, but that's on the agenda. The motion is correct.
Okay. Is there a mover and seconder for this? Are you moving, Councilor? Councilor Nash moves, seconded by Councilor Lamb. Any discussion?
If I might through you, Mr. Mayor, I just have a few points to it. At first, when I read it, I thought it made total sense to move it because of the audio problems. But at the same time, I think about it, and I know some of the residents up in that area really liked it being there in person. I don't think there's ever a lot of people out. You'd get several people out. But when I think about it, the one question I wanted to ask tonight is, I know now we don't have one Starlink system, but we have two Starlink systems, and I know Starlink can be portable now. So the only question I might add is, I know, I think we were all there during the summer. During the election, there was a meeting there, and they had, I think, a Bell Hub or a Rogers Hub, and the meeting was able to be carried on and was online. So the only thinking of that, if we don't have a hub system, did we put any thought into just moving one of the Starlink systems for the day, which obviously works fine because we're on it right now, and still being able to have it up there by just transporting a Starlink there for the day? It would be the only other thought I'd have. That way we might be able to still have a meeting there. And I don't think the Starlinks are too fixed from my recall when I use them. Or have used them.
Okay, just a simple, quick response. The Starlinks are mounted to the roof of the building. They have to. I mean, you can move them around, but every time you put it up, it has to then go and find its satellite again and all that kind of thing. So it's not. And there are also, you have to have it in an area where it has essentially clear sky access to the satellite that it connects to. Trees and things in the way will stop it from working, which is why we end up mounting it on the roof, right?
Yeah.
But I mean,
I think there's a lot.
you're right. I guess the only other thought that occurred to me about it was, can you imagine being in there tonight? If it was like this kind of weather, I mean,
No air.
like it's pretty. If it gets like this, it's pretty humid, but anyway. I mean, would it be possible to make some arrangement to set it up? To set something up, I guess it would, but. Anyway, I don't know. Are there any other comments about this?
Yeah, through you.
We're getting pretty close. Right?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, that meeting has been, semi-successful in the past. People from Wawashkesh would come out and people who normally wouldn't drive down to Dunchurch come out. We've held it there pretty religiously, maybe not during COVID. Maybe we didn't for a year or two. Well, we didn't have meetings anyway, so. But not to digress a little bit. I thought we had, does the fire department up there have internet? And that's not good enough to use their system or whatever. It's not Starlink, I take it.
No, through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't know what it's called, but it's through ExploreNet, but it's not a hub
Okay.
that's movable. The other thing I just want to point out, and it's up to council to take the risk. We could move Starlink, we could run off of hotspot. I still think it's a risk. Our auditors are coming that night. Now they'll be here in person, so they'll be at the Ardbeg Community Club, but it's the audio and connectivity, how we connect through the speakers to Zoom and the
Yeah.
people on Zoom connect to us. I think that's also a risk. I just want to say that, and then I'll leave the decision up to you, and whatever happens, happens.
Okay.
Councillor Woods.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. It's a shame that we can't have it up there, just because I know all the work that community members put into giving a real good facelift to that building. And I always like going out to those meetings. But if we can't do it because of internet issues, I guess it is what it is. Maybe one day, hopefully one day, we can still host a meeting out there. Have a proper hybrid meeting so everyone can be involved.
Okay. So are you ready for the question? All those in favor of the motion? Okay, thank you. That's carried. Next one is a memo concerning strategic priorities. So the motion that I have one that is as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone receive for information the memorandum from CAO Clark Hendry strategic plan moving forward with 2023 priorities. Update from the June 20th, 23 council meeting dated July 4th, 2023, and that the recommendations in the above referenced memorandum are hereby accepted in respect of bringing forward to council a draft updated rental unit bylaw, trailer bylaw, parking bylaw, and the draft animal and bird bylaw. Would somebody like to? Sorry, whoops. Would somebody like to move that? Counselor Lamb moved, seconded by Counselor Woods. So discussion. Any discussion?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Really good memo, Michelle. I just checked off, I'm in agreement, so I think that's a reasonable plan going forward. I think if we can do all these things in 2023, we should applaud you on your back and say, great stuff. So if it's achievable, great. I think some of these are more important than others, but we can get all four, I think it's 4 of them done.
Yep.
It's great. So, I'm fully supportive of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Counselor Nash.
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. I also, I appreciated the detail that was put in the summary sheet of the 4 items, just giving a little highlights of what the next steps are. I think that that's nice and very transparent, I think. And it's just nice to see where we'll go. The one question I had was on the parking bylaw. And it says, as the implementation of enforced parking is no longer required, the council direction, this bylaw update can be put on hold. And I guess the only question I had to that is, I know it might not be enforced parking by the way of a parking permit, but do we still need to work on anything when it comes to, parking on the side of the roads or parking, I'll use in a accessible parking spot? Is there anything else that we need to do just in regards to parking, maybe in general, like we just spoke about trailer parking as an example? So is there anything not to do so much with enforced paid metered parking, like $10 for a day, but just parking in our parking lots or anything like that we might want to look at and fine tune? I'm not sure.
Yeah, the short answer is yes. Do you
Yes.
want to comment?
Yeah,
Madam Chair.
I would repeat, the short answer is yes, and that's why, aside from the enforced parking issue, which was the original attention that's being paid to the bylaw, there were other things within that bylaw that the public works manager was going to look at and update, and nothing fatal, just things that have changed over the years. And so that's why I've assigned it to the public works manager, and you'll see. So I think something we'll get through the summer and he'll tackle that. And I think we do have to look closely at Farley's Road. That's something we've never looked at closely, and we've just sold passes and it's worked nicely, but we can just take all the information we have now about parking and implement it into the bylaw. And there's other things within that bylaw that need to be attended to. So it'll take a little bit longer than normal.
Perfect. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. Any other comments? Are you ready for the question? All those in favor? Okay, thank you. That's carried. And the next one was the one about benthic monitoring, am I right? Okay, this is the last item left over from the previous meeting. Well, other than correspondence, I guess. The suggested motion is that the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone acknowledges and supports the 2023 benthic monitoring program being undertaken by Georgian Bay Biosphere for the following lakes: Lake Wawashkesh, Lorimer Lake, and Whitestone Lake, and that the benthic monitoring cycle for 2024 and going forward by reviewed in concert with a professional environmental consultant and the Georgian Bay Biosphere staff. Mover and seconder. Councillor Nash is moving, seconded by. Councillor Rice, second. All right, thank you. Discussion.
Just briefly through you, Mr. Mayor. I'd asked this item to be placed on the agenda. And the only reason why it was placed on is one of the lakes, if I'm quoting correct, Whitestone Lake, I believe has already had 3 years. And at first it was thought that maybe 3 years would be enough. And then in staff communications with the Georgian Bay Biosphere, it was said that, maybe it's 5 years or maybe it's 10 years. If I don't think I'm misspeaking. So as part of the stewardship committee, we were speaking of it one day about, well, if we're already at 3 years, should we start another lake? So when I heard what Georgian Bay Biosphere had said, had suggested that we listen to what Georgian Bay had suggested, that it be more than the 3 years. And for now, for 2024, we continue with the same lakes until we have the professional environmental consultant on board to see what they think going forward. We kind of leave it as status quo until we have a consultant who's working for us give us a bit more insight onto it. So that's why it was put there, kind of allows us to say, we know these will be the lakes. They have to do the testing soon. And it's what the Biosphere had suggested, that it be more than the 3 years now. So that was all.
Thank you. Anything else about this one? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. That's that one. And that brings us to correspondence. Whereas the Council of the Municipality of Whitestone has reviewed the correspondence items listed on page 6 of the July 4th, 2023 council agenda. Now therefore be it resolved that council received the correspondence items for information with the following extracted for further discussion and action. Mover and seconder, and then we'll populate the list. If Councillor Woods moves, seconded by Councillor Nash. Thank you. So I will ask you, we have from the previous meetings, items A through F. And we have new correspondence since the June 20th meeting, A through G. Which if any of those do you wish to discuss? I don't know, you. I'd like to pull one. Which one? H. Mr. Dale Duffy or Mrs. Dale, I don't know, but Mr. or Mrs. other one. Well, you're talking about,
Folger Lane.
you're talking about Bolger. Okay, so that's B, that's A sub H. Okay. A. So that's 2A sub H. Duffy, Bolger. Any other, Councillor Lamb?
I don't want anything pulled, but just for everyone's information, when it comes to councillor items, I'll be talking about the municipality of McDougall Planning Board succession planning. I'll be talking about it then a little bit. And I'll also be talking about Carling's request to get out of the planning board. Both those things were brought to the planning board this month, and I'll talk to them under councillor items.
Oh, okay. All right, so is there anything else you want to pull from correspondence?
I was gonna pull item B, but if Councillor Lamb's gonna speak to in councillor items, I'll let him speak to it instead of me pulling it, so.
Yeah, and councillor Nash may want to also talk on that.
Oh, well, okay, fine.
He's our member on the planning board, so
Yeah.
I may get something wrong, so.
Okay, all right, so. We approved this motion already, didn't we? We just have to do the follow-up now. Am I right? Did we vote on it?
No, we didn't vote on.
Oh, sorry.
I can't remember.
And I was gonna pull E, sorry, it was the other one I was trying to find. E,
Which E?
the new E,
it.
MNRF amendments. to the public
Amendments
lands
to the
Act.
public, so that's 2E. and our three public land act, okay. That's regarding floating accommodation, correct? Yeah, all right. Okay, those in favor, let's take the vote on this, we should. Intended to do that before, okay, so, Councillor Wood, if you wanted to talk about part two, AH.
Sure, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I know we've all received lots of emails, phone calls, regarding Bolger. When I got a copy of this one, I would like to thank Dale Duffy for this letter that came in. I would draw everyone's attention to the first two sentences. I would like to commend the council members on the resolution for Boulder Landing put forth at their June 6th meeting. My family and I feel that this will be good for the community by adding structure and a definite expectation on how to use public property. I just wanted to highlight that. I think it was worth highlighting. And I believe that's what we were all trying to do, is put some structure around all of our launch areas. So I would say good job to all of us.
Okay, thank you. So, how about number E, the Public Lands Act?
And through you, Mr. Mayor, I just pulled it because I know there've been some, I'd seen some articles on news broadcasts and stuff about people taking out barges and putting sea cans on them and floating around lakes. I think it was Lake Muskoka or Lake Rosso, and be a couple days or couple nights that move around.
Use mine.
No, I don't think mine's, I'm not sure. Anyways.
It might be your lapel mic, in fact, I don't know.
Mine?
Yeah, but I don't know, anyway.
All I was gonna say was I noted that they've now passed a new regulation where it says, I just gotta find it on this. page. To clarify, it's made to clarify that floating accommodations cannot be placed or used for outdoor accommodation for camping purposes on public land. So I think they're trying to stop these big floating sea cans from floating around and people using them as a cottage or a home. So I just noted that it was in there and we've got an article on it recently. So.
Yeah, perhaps, I mean, I don't know that this is particularly a concern to us, but it's definitely a concern to, some of the Georgian Bay Township, Gloucester Pool, that whole area down there. The problem with it was that the folks who were assembling these particular things, and you probably saw pictures of them, and they got them treated by Transport Canada as vessels, which means that they're federally regulated under the Vessels Act, right? And so theoretically, the province, and originally they drafted a bunch of amendments to the Public Lands Act that were designed to basically outlaw them on lakes and rivers, and the lakes and rivers are public lands, so they had draft legislation out for comment back in March, and then they withdrew it. And I think what happened was they got some legal advice that wasn't the best way to go. So this more recent attempt is basically to say, okay, we already have the ability to regulate them as, because effectively what they're doing is they're using it for accommodation. So you can't, they're regulating where you can tie them up and how long they can be in one place and things of that sort. Because I guess the prospect of getting the feds to make some regulation about it, that was going to be a long time. People were chomping at the bit. So
just through you, the thing I wasn't sure of when I was reading this is, you have a party boat, people camp on them sometimes, or if you have a houseboat that people rent out, people camp on. The way I read this, can't camp on a party boat anymore. You can't camp on a houseboat. There is no camping on the water anymore, period. So I'm wondering how that will actually transpire. There must be more to this, so.
Well, I honestly don't know. Yes, go ahead.
I think there's provisions in here that allow for boats
Yeah.
that have sleeping accommodations and cooking accommodations. So if your boat has that, then you are able to do it. But I think what the distinction, I think at the end, I can't remember what it said, but the distinction was very specific, whether it was, sorry, I better not say because I can't remember. But I do know that you have a certain amount of time you can stay in any one area. Just like camping anywhere. There's 21 days.
You can still have a houseboat, and you can still go up and down Georgian Bay and for a month and live on the houseboat, right? And you can go into a marina and whatever and get your supplies but you can't, there's restrictions on how close you can't just anchor it off somebody's shore, right? So I think that's kind of how they solved it. Anyway, hopefully not our problem in Whitestone. So we are done with correspondence, councillor items. Councillor Nash, you want to go on the planning board?
I think Councillor Lamb.
I'm gonna, is it okay? I'm gonna just briefly talk, excuse me, about the planning board. Funny, we had 11 cases and then last month we had 9. So that's 20 cases in 2 months. So that was good activity, I guess. But anyway, there were 2 things that came to the board. There were actually 3 mayors there because David Moore is on the planning board from McKellar. And Dale Robinson came from McDougall, I think specifically on this letter. And the mayor, Susan from Carling.
Susan Murphy.
Susan Murphy, yeah, she was there too. So
Yeah.
anyway, with the McDougall letter, they wanted to, last month, what really happened was we said we'll go out for a request for proposal to replace planning services for John Jackson, who's leaving in the case of the planning board, the end of the year or so. And that we would transition Patrick into a role, I guess, somewhat similar to Glenn Robinson when he was with the planning board. McDougall, I guess, thought that we should be going out to tender, if you will, for Patrick's and Lori's job. So that's what we're going to do. It's going to be a funny kind of quote because we'll be going out saying just planning services. But if you're interested to give us planning services plus administration with a storefront in Perry Sound, you could bid on that too. Or someone could bid just on the administration part. Because we doubt that we'll get someone that'll do it all like John has. And I don't think planners who are down in Aurelia will want to start a storefront in Perry Sound. So my concern was that with Patrick, that with the 2 of them, they, again, we'd rather avoid a employee type situation and all the ramifications that come with that. So that he may want to form a company and bid for services, administration services. So we kind of complied with what McDougall was saying. And John is preparing a request for proposal to send out on all that stuff. So the second thing was Carling wanting to come out of the planning board, and they were asking for support of the other members of the planning board to accomplish that. After we had some discussion as to John Jackson's interpretation of Carling when they were, he said they were denied the last time that I guess when Perry Sound asked to get out, Carling at the same time asked to get out. And John said they were denied. Susan clarified that they weren't really denied. They were told not now. So anyway, my feeling was that based on the comments that were being made, for instance, JJ Blower from McDougall said, well, I'd like to be able to take something like this back to my council before I, commit, whatever. I said, are you really sure you want to go ahead with a vote on this? Because I would have suspected that the planning board would not have supported Carling's application for whatever that means. They could still make the application. The government still can make the decision but so they withdrew it. They withdrew their request and said they would take it back to their council and discuss it further as to where they want to go with this. So that's what they did. So those were the two motions that involved, more than just the planning board files. So I don't know, did I miss anything or about what happens? So anyway, that's all I have. Thank you. Except on Monday or on Saturday, I was over for a bit and it was a really good event here. I had to leave around 7 or 7:15 and but I understand from people afterwards that a lot of fun and good events. And to the rec committee who did it, here to all be congratulated. So thank you.
Thanks on behalf of the committee. They did lots of hard work.
Sure did.
I'm sorry, Councillor Woods. Yes, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. But one of the things I was gonna touch on was the event here for Canada Day. Even though we didn't get to have the fireworks, I think a really good time was had by everyone who attended. The cardboard boat race was awesome. I love watching people put that cardboard boat out there and see if it's gonna last long enough before they sink. It's always a good event. So I would thank everybody that took part in putting that together because it was a very successful event, I believe. I had a couple of phone calls from ratepayers over the past week and a half, 2 weeks. And they were good ones. Compliments, actually. So I wanted to share it with everybody. I had specific phone calls about the Farley's launch area and the upgrades that we had done out there. It's really nice hearing from people that like when we're getting work done around those launch areas and they appreciate it. They very much appreciated the work and asked me to send along their many thanks to council and staff. I drove down there, took a look, looks awesome. Looks like a much more usable space for sure. I also had phone calls about the Maple Island Common area and just wanted to pass along the thanks that I've received from ratepayers out there and make sure that staff gets that message that people are appreciating the work that they've been putting in. And I'll just leave my comments there. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. I'm just making note of that. Okay, any other comments? Councillor Lamb?
Yeah, just a comment on Councillor Woods' comment on Farley Road. I was under the misunderstanding that the public would be able to park at Farley's Road. And that sort of the left side would be for the deeded access people and the right side, if you will, would be for the public, which is more than ample. But I guess we didn't pass that in a motion. So I would request at the next meeting that perhaps that subject be put on so that we could formalize that, because I thought that's what we had done. In fact, I got a call again from someone who was complimenting us on the work that was done there. And he's one of the deeded access people and he was happy. And he said, well, there's been a truck there the last 2 weekends with a trailer and they seem to stay the whole weekend. And I said, well, that's because they're allowed to. They're probably on Long R Bay, right? And then I was talking to Michelle, she didn't pass that, so. So we better rectify that, because that was my understanding as to why, part of the reason we were doing all the improvements is that we could make part of that lot. And I explained to the man, that although you get 2 or 3 parking spots for that deeded access, if you needed more, it doesn't mean your company can't go over in the public area, right? And park. Because I said, I think rarely will it ever be all filled up. It's not going to be, so, but I didn't want people getting tickets who are down there from the public, so, who might be under the same misunderstanding that I was. So anyway, if it can come back at the next meeting, that would be really good. Thank you.
You know, I was under the impression that we did agree to it, to that. Hmm? Oh, okay, all right. I received I received a call from one of the deeded access people who again was very complimentary about, oh, this is pretty nice and whatever, and I mean, we didn't talk about that because he was a deeded access person, but I assumed that there were going to be others,
So did I.
others on the property.
You know, there was a resolution whereby it was to be improved for public access, and then the issue of public access, I think, was removed by Councillor Nash. Yeah, that was what's recorded in the audio. But anyway, there's right now, as it stands, there's no public parking there, but that can be rectified at the
Yeah,
next
we should
meeting.
do that at the next meeting.
Well, but do we need the parking bylaw to do that?
Technically, yes. But, you know, if that's council's desire to allow for public parking there, and it's not going to be crowded and there's not going to be overbearing, I think that if, you know, if council wants to go ahead and do that, and then it gets put into the parking bylaw at some point, you know, it can't necessarily be enforced, but, you know, it's a regular runway down there. So it was widened and there's room on both sides for lots of people.
Okay, all right, any other councillor items?
Yeah, I have a couple. But just first, do you know what meeting that would have been at that we spoke about Farley's Road if I said something? Do you have any recollection or what month it might be?
I can have staff through you, Mr. I can have staff pull the resolution.
If they could.
That would
yeah.
be the
I'll
meeting.
just go back and listen. I don't remember that, but if I said it, maybe I said it. Anyways, so I have the first item I have is a pretty quick one. I know a few weeks back or a few meetings back, I guess is more probably in tune. Just wondering what was happening. I know we now do have the 2 Starlinks, one at the library, one at here, and we've spoken about maybe connecting a cable and being able to transfer this one to a different location. I didn't know if that would be coming back with the staff report at any time the next couple of meetings going forward, or where that stood.
I don't think there was any specific council direction. Councillor comments are not necessarily council direction to staff. We do no longer have VNet here, so the double internet access has been eliminated. So there's a guest access here, and just tonight Calvin connected to the guest access. There's no password, and there's another access as well for internal use, but for regular use you can just use the guest access at Starlink. We still use Bell connectivity at the office, and the library has its own Starlink. They have extensive use at the library. In fact, I think more people use that public access than any other location.
They do.
Perfect. So, if I'm right and understand, I think the one at the library is $300 or $400 a month or something like that. Is like, it's a commercial one or not? And anyways, I was wondering if there was not a staff direction, and maybe if staff could look into, I'm sure the one at the library would also work for here. But could we look at what we could possibly do to in the staff report to connect the two buildings and maybe use the one that's here and take it to the works department or somewhere else to save ourselves several $100s a month if we have two Starlinks within 100 feet of each other. Anyway, it's just a question that we'll see on an upcoming council. And then my next comment was, I know probably many road associations or road groups or whoever they might be starting to put in the road grant applications for 2023 now that the budget's been passed. And I guess I just ask that we as a municipality, we ensure that we're following the current road grant bylaw that's in place and really ensuring that all the backup documentation is reviewed. And we ensure all the proper documents included with the applications before we're issuing checks.
See the little mute switch on the top of it?
I'm gonna mute it.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. So,
No,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's just you got it in the right place, it'll feed back if it's on it.
no problem. Anyways, yeah, just making sure, I'd written out a couple things here, and this is based on the current, not changing anything in the current bylaw, just making sure we're following it. And it notes to be eligible to receive a grant, property owners fronting on and or utilizing one or more open, private or unassumed roads must form a road group duly constituted as defined, whose membership must represent at least 2/3 of the household serviced by the road. So I think, if we can make sure it's representing 2/3 of the people on the road. And it also notes fronting and or utilizing one or more opened private roads, right? So it's not just for what would I say, residents that have a structure on, just for a property, similar to what was done to Bolger. So I think we have to make sure if we're doing that at Bolger, we're doing that municipal wide until such time. And then number 2, it says if a private road, the application must be accompanied with written confirmation from the owner of the road approving the application and the work to be completed. So I think we just need to make sure it says a little bit more after that, but we just make sure that the owners have approved it. And that is included with the application each year. So that's my road grant question. And then I guess it was just in a conversation I recently had in the last couple of days, but I know the bylaw officer has been out to some of the landings, in particular Lake Washkesh, and was giving, from what I understand, warnings to people that were parked in accessible parking spots. And I guess first off, I just want to say, if I can, if somebody's parking illegally in a handicap parking spot or an accessible parking spot, they shouldn't be getting a warning. They should be getting their $300 or $400 or $500 ticket, period. So I don't know if we can maybe make sure that we're paying the bylaw officer to go out and look at stuff, that if there's an infraction of something like that, or parking in a fire route, it's a little different if they've done a little violation, but I don't think those ones are too small that we're actually giving the tickets or phoning the authorities that need to come out and do the ticketing. And I'd hope that, if we're going to somewhere like Lake Washkesh at that same tour, that bylaw officer is going to all the other landings and looking around and giving notices or giving tickets, and because it is costing us money when he goes out. So if you're going to go out, instead of a warning, sometimes it might be for a ticket. And then another one was more just, this is the last item I have, it's more just for, it happened to be on one of the task forces that I was on, but I think just going forward, we as a municipality and members of task forces or committees, we have to make sure that we're including all committee members on correspondence and not, missing out on some people. But also I think it's important that when we're transmitting committee information before it's out to the public, a day of a meeting, what the topics might be, discussion on items that might be taking place at the meeting, that those aren't sent to non-committee members to comment on. I think we really have to be careful, because it's happened on one of the committees I was on, that, you know, the people getting the information are the committee members or task force members until such time that that information is made public. I think we have to be really careful on that, because I don't think we should be giving information to select individuals until it's made public to all if they're not on a committee. So, and that's it. And thank you for my time.
Okay, thanks. Just with respect to the bylaw officer, the bylaw officer issues warnings because he does not know who the owner of the vehicle is. If he finds the same vehicle there a second time, then he will go to the OPP and find out who the vehicle belongs to. But when he's out there on the site, he doesn't know who the owner is. So he cannot issue a Provincial Offences Act summon to the person because he doesn't have the owner information.
And so I don't want to get into a debate, but why would our bylaw officer not have that information when I think we were told previously that we can look up license plates? So maybe there's a way that if he can't do it, that we find out there's a way that he can do it.
The
He or she.
CAO will answer. She has answered before, but yeah.
The answer is we have applied to MTO for that approval. And it's a long process. I've been working on it for probably over a year now. I think we're close. And there's all sorts of checks and balances they want in place. They want to, you know, understand what the security of your building is, because you have clear access to private information. They have to understand it's being used properly. And it's a bit of a slow moving train on their end. So they've committed that they're close to giving us that approval, but we're not quite there yet. So once we have that, there'll be a couple of people in the office that would have access to it. It's called the ARIS system. The bylaw enforcement officer, he may be one of those people we could give access to. You have to sign all sorts of confidentiality agreements. You simply go on, you look it up, you track where you got the information, how long you kept it, where you stored it, why you're going to use it. There's a whole process. So the short answer is we can't do it yet, but we're almost there. We can look up staff driver's licenses, for instance. We have that approval, so we can make sure we do this every 6 months. We have that approval, make sure the driver's licenses are still valid. It's more important with heavy trucks, but actually looking up the owner of the vehicle is a little more complex. So not quite there yet.
Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, the handicap accessible people parking in it without a permit is, you know, kind of near and dear to my heart. I think it's an egregious thing to do. And so my immediate reaction would be to agree with Councillor Nash. Don't give them a warning, give them a ticket, whoever it is. I know if I did that in Burlington, I would be immediately issued a ticket for, and I guess the reason is they could look up or call in and get who the ownership is. But my question is, how would the bylaw officer be able to do it on a second occasion that he can't do it on the first occasion? What's he going to do when he goes out there and says, that's the same car that I gave a warning to last week, and suddenly he can get that information?
He's not getting the information. He's getting the OPP to ticket it. He
But
goes,
he could call the first time.
yeah. The problem
that's, I
is by
think,
the time they,
yeah.
you know, depending who it is and how long it's there for, by the time the OPP gets here, then there's no.
Well, wouldn't that be the case the second time too? I don't just buy the first, second time.
Yeah, but if somebody who is an authorized peace officer is prepared to testify that the vehicle was there at the moment in time when he saw it, then the ticket is good, right?
Well, can't they take a picture of the vehicle in the parking spot? Like, I mean,
Well,
I appreciate the work that Michelle's doing. And I'm not
Yeah.
suggesting we should have or could have done anything different. It's just, I think we employ our bylaw officer, and I know he tries to work towards a solution, but that to me is an egregious offense, and personally, I would like to see people ticketed the first time and not give them a warning. You know, I don't, I just find it egregious. Anyway, I've said my 2 cents worth. Hopefully we can get the approval, but once we get the approval to get those, I wouldn't expect him to be given warnings in this case. If he is, then we need to talk to our bylaw officer and instruct him differently, in my opinion. Thank you.
I have something to, after this, but I would agree with Councillor Lamb. I think it's that law has been in for a long time. Everybody knows what it is. There is no excuse for parking in a designated spot for persons with disabilities. And if they've got the proper paper, then that's fine, the permit. But if they don't, then they shouldn't be in there. And I know that if I was in the city and did that, I'd probably get my car towed away. Not only would I have a
Yeah.
fine, but my car would be towed away and I'd have to pay to get out of there. So I think that, again, I know that at first when we started with the fire permits or the fire bylaw about burning, and at first, you know, we gave out lots of warnings, but after that, it gets to a point where the warnings don't mean anything. You need to pay, you need to do the ticketing. So I agree on handicap parking spots. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And did you have another item you wanted to raise, Councilor Ray?
Yes, on May 30th, I attended it on your behalf, the grade 8 graduation here from the Whitestone Public School, and gave out the Citizenship Award. And it was to Charlotte Matthews. So that was very nice to be able to do that. And they had a lovely event. It was very well attended because they had 12 graduates this year. 12, which is amazing. And they had a lovely event here, and afterwards they were having a meal and they were having a dance for them for any of the grade 5 and up students could attend as well. So it was really a nice event. And I thank the council for certainly for sponsoring that. That's a wonderful award. Thank you.
And
Okay, thank you.
I just had one more question or one more comment. I just remembered, if I might, through you, Mr. Mayor, it'll take all of 30 seconds. I know I thanked staff at the last meeting for setting up the radar sign on the bunny trail on a temporary basis. And I just wanted to say, I think it's working because I've had a couple of people tell me, you have to move that sign because every time I drive by, it's blinking at me. So it means it's in their mind now, right? That, hey, we see this, it's blinking. It's there. So I think it shows that sign, wherever it might be, does work because you're getting people speaking about it, right? So I'm not sure if it's still there now, but when it was there, if it was starting to work because people were noticing it. So I think it'd be great even to get maybe a few others as the years go on for other areas.
Well,
Mr. Mayor,
if enough people do that, then the time, go through it, wave at it as it blinks at them. Then one day there will be an officer hiding behind it with a radar gun and they'll get pulled over.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, when I went to Ardbeg to check out the audio, I actually took the bunny trail right from 124, and McDougall has a speed sign
Yes.
in their space. And then we have ours a little further, because when I saw the speed sign, I thought, gee, I think Dave's got it in the wrong location. He's in McDougall, but we have ours out further. So people are getting a double whammy on the bunny trail. Yeah.
And their limit is like 40 or 50 or something, where there's this. Councilor Lamb.
Just a couple other things I just thought of. I was up to the York landfill site, I think it was on Monday. And I've never seen the bottle shed so clean in all the time I've ever been there. So I compliment them for that. It was impeccable. Like there's no bottles, and I know we have a few drinkers in the municipality. So,
No.
and then
Sure
the
is.
second thing, when I was coming out, I noticed the service sign that we moved from over at the Grange, where a lot of people never saw it. And it's very visible as you come out York Street and you see it. So again, that was I think a good decision that we made. And, yeah, so that's the York landfill. So it was the Lions, yeah, the Lions sign with all the, but unfortunately, in my opinion, when they made the squares so small that when it was over at the Grange, you'd have never known. So most people didn't even know the sign was there, but you do notice it now that it's at the landfill. So, or just outside of it on a road line.
Okay, thank you. All right, if there's nothing else, we do have, I guess, a few members of the public. We have one in the room here and a few in the, are there any questions from the public? Yes, please. So the folks online can,
Here, Ed,
there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people online, so.
you sit down, Ed, and you can ask your question.
I have two quick quick questions and a comment. The first question is that I've missed a couple of meetings, but under the whole question about the EP zones in Whitestone. When council, I believe, elected not to have them reinstated, or for want of a better expression, does that mean that every EP zone in Whitestone no longer exists? One of the reasons I asked is there's two or three on Fairholme Lake where I live. And I'm not sure it makes a hell of a lot of difference, but I'm just curious to know whether they still exist or not. The second question is, when we passed the bylaw, I believe, allowing development on backlots, I'm just curious to know if we've had any building permit applications for those backlots. And I just want to make a comment about the pool. I'm not against the pool per se. I'm against this project because I think it's wrong. But as far as the question that's being asked, I've had a lot of dealings with BDO, Dunwoody, KPMG, and all those people in my business life. And they are very specific. They're public corporations. And when something is asked of them, they sign a contract for a fixed amount. There has to be specific directions to them. Because if there aren't, if they're asked to do a survey or review or whatever, they will quote a figure, but they say it depends on what they have to do. And the $5,000 is a tiny amount. They will do no investigations. They will not interview the government or anybody else has been involved in this. So I think it's very pertinent that the terms of reference be obtained. Okay.
Okay, thank you. I don't know about EP zones exist where they exist on them on a map. There isn't any. We didn't get rid of any EP zones. It's simply becomes a question of what, you know, what we, you know, the clerk can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what we agreed, what we said we were going to do is we were not going to take any further action with respect to putting restrictions of our own by the municipality on the EP zones, but the EP zones are still there. They're not, we didn't make any changes to EP zones. We would have to rezone to do that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I thought it was that we weren't going to designate wetland. Like there were all these ones that were dropped by John Jackson when we went from one plan to another. So I remember discussing the wetlands and we weren't going to put any further restrictions on those. But if you look at a map, for instance, where there's EP zones on Fairholme Lake or on Whitestone or any other ones where they're identifying from a planning standpoint, that always comes up as items.
Yeah.
So they haven't gone, they're still there on the lake, right? And but the zone like the Lorimer Lake, you know, where they drain the place beside it. That's what I guess some people were calling a wetland, but we're not putting restrictions on that. or we didn't decide, we decided not to in that instance and others that would be similar. So we're not gonna go on a bunch of private property and say, you know, your pond is an EP zone now, and here's all the restrictions on it, right? Yeah, no, nothing's changed. I
Oh,
think
no,
as the mayor says,
the-
nothing's changed.
the ones specifically that are, you're talking about Fairhome, right? No, that would have no, what we did has no effect on your zones at all, right? It would have no effect on the zones that exist. There are zones around Fairhome that are EP, and they would be no. Yeah. Yeah. No, there's still,
And
Yeah.
I think through you, Mr. Mayor, to help you out, Mr. Can, I think, yeah, if you're looking at a current map from the last couple years, anything that's showing on those current maps are still there. This was something that,
Yeah.
if there was something removed from a map a number of years ago that now doesn't show up. So anything you see on a current map is still there. And I don't think it affected any EP or even wetlands that were along any water's edge. This was more, a few were removed or not removed, they just weren't included on some of the backcountry, if you want to think of it like that. And then to answer, I think I'm correct, to answer your question about backlot development, I believe there's been one,
Yes.
maybe one application that allowed for severance of 2 or 3 lots. And I don't know if there's any building permits, but there's been one consent application that went through for backlots so far. You're welcome.
Okay, thanks. Are there any other questions from the public who are on the call? Okay, so I don't see anybody lighting up. With that, then I will ask for mover and seconder for our confirmatory bylaw, please. It is moved by Councillor Wood, seconded by Councillor Nash, Councillor Bray, what am I saying? All those in favor, please indicate. Thank you very much. That's carried. And the last motion is the adjournment motion. Who wants to make that one? That's Councillor Lamb, moves, seconded by Councillor Ray. Whereas the business of this meeting is concluded, now therefore be it resolved that this meeting be adjourned at, it looks like 7:29 PM. Until the regular closed session council meeting of Thursday, July 6, 2023 at 4 PM or at the call of the chair. All those in favor? Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for joining us, those in the room and on Zoom, and we'll enjoy the rest of your, hope you enjoy the rest of your warm evening.